Mayor, members of the council, good evening. The meeting is now being recorded live.
Thank you so much for that, City Clerk. Good evening and welcome to the March 10th, 2025, 6 p.m. regular joint meeting of the Bell Garden City Council and successor agency to the Community Development Commission. This meeting will now come to order at 6:06 p.m. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any of the members should have a conflict of interest, please announce any items you're recusing yourself from due to a conflict of interest prior to it being heard. Tonight's invocation will be led by Pastor Leal, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Girl Scouts Troop 2543.
Well, good evening, Mayor Chavez, all the councilmen and the councilwoman, city manager, our attorney, and the rest of the staff. It's always good to be here. You know, I look forward to being here and greeting all of you. And when I was coming up here, the Lord gave me a verse that I want to share before we go into prayer. And it's Psalms 27, verse 1. And it says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Of whom should I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. I should not be afraid." We live in times where many people are afraid of many things. But let us not forget that we don't walk by ourselves. We have a God, a Savior that walks with us. So let us go before Him. If you can come to your feet, or all of us here, I greet you, all of you, and let us pray. Father, we want to thank you. We want to thank you for all the good things you have given us. Thank you for our city. Thank you for our leaders. Thank you for the staff. Thank you for everybody that's here. May you be with us. May your grace, may your wisdom be with us, with our leaders, that every decision that they take this evening would honor you and be for the good of each one of our citizens. Father, we ask this in the precious name of Jesus, and can we say amen? Thank you.
Please stay standing. Face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may now be seated.
Thank you so much for that. City Clerk, please announce, roll call the City Council Successor Agency.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the council and successor agency, Barcena.
Present.
Councilwoman Guillen. Present. Councilwoman Sanchez.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem de la Rosa.
Present.
And Mayor Chavez.
Present. Thank you for that, City Clerk. We will now move on to presentations. City Manager, please introduce the presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Chavez. The first certificate of recognition we have is for Alfredo's Mexican Food, and I'll turn it over to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, City Manager. So, certificate of recognition, City of Bell Gardens honoring Alfredo's Mexican Food. For those that don't know, Alfredo's Mexican Food is on Eastern in Florence, open 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365. Unfortunately, Don Octavio, who is the owner of Alfredo's Mexican Food, couldn't be here today. But I'll be sure to read the certificate, and then I will be taking the certificate and presenting it to him at his restaurant. So with that said, the certificate states, certificate of recognition honoring Alfredo's Mexican Food. The Bell Garden City Council is honored to recognize Alfredo's Mexican Food. We congratulate you on your successful business, your casual restaurant, and delicious, authentic food. We wish you much success and prosperity for many more years to come. Signed, Jorge Chavez, Mayor of the Bell Garden City, along with the Bell Garden City Council, March 10th, 2025. It looks like this, and we would usually take a picture with the person who's coming, but unfortunately they're not present. But I'll make sure to take this to them and present it on behalf of the city. And if there's anything I could say about Alfredo's Mexican Food is that they have the best asada fries. So really, see, it's really, they're really great. Moving on to our next certificate of recognition, I'll go ahead and pass it over to our city manager, Michael O'Kelly.
Thanks again, Mayor. The Mayor's allowing me to read this one on his behalf. This is for a departing employee, Gus Romo. This certificate is presented to Gustavo Romo in recognition of 5 years plus of outstanding service and dedication to the community of Bell Gardens. As a Deputy City Manager and Community Development Director with the Bell Gardens Community Development Department, he has demonstrated exceptional skill, commitment, and leadership. His contributions to community engagement and departmental growth have been invaluable. His contributions to both the department and the community are immeasurable, particularly exemplary work in community engagement and leadership within the department. Your mentorship has guided staff through the complexities of planning, building and safety, business licensing, economic development, code enforcement, and housing with professionalism and expertise. Your leadership has left a lasting impact on both the department and those fortunate enough to work alongside you. We sincerely appreciate your valuable contribution and dedication to Bell Gardens. Your presence will be greatly missed by our community members, staff, and leadership. On behalf of Mayor Jorge Chavez and the rest of the City Council, they would like to extend their best wishes and success for you in all your future endeavors. And if I could just say a few words about Gus, when I got here in 2019, there was a lot of change. It was one of those periods where there's organizational change that happens every so often. And Gus was the first department head that I was able to hire here in the city. You know, a very nice person, just right off the bat, a good person, a good-hearted person, truthful person. Somebody that, you know, I enjoy the professional friendship with. I think probably a lasting friendship outside of us working together here at the City of Bell Gardens. And looking back over the last 5 years, there's been some major items that Gus has helped to accomplish, helped the city accomplish. Some of the things that come to mind are adopting a rent stabilization and tenant protection ordinance from scratch. We didn't have one before. Navigating that process. Also working on a cannabis ordinance about 2 years ago, another major undertaking, an ordinance that was not there before. Also building up that housing department, creating staff positions, developing them, hiring people in. And throughout COVID, there was a period of time there where the community development department was regularly hit with, I was at the barber shop. They're not making me stay 6 feet away from people. They're not making people wear their masks. What is the community development department going to do to ensure some of these compliance issues? So I think there have been major items that will have long-lasting major impact on the city of Bell Gardens that Gus has had the opportunity to work on and has done so in a way that I think's put the city in great positions and in the positions that the city council had directed staff to be put in. So with that, I would just say thanks again to Gus for the 5.5 years of service to the city of Bell Gardens, and it's been a pleasure working with you. I think I can speak on behalf of the department heads that are here, the previous department heads that we've worked with, and I think also the previous council members as well that we worked with over that time. So thank you for all those years of service, and congratulations in moving onward and upward. And who knows where our paths will cross, whether it be with me or the city of Bell Gardens or other Southeast LA cities in the future. So thank you, guys.
At this moment, and I'll go ahead and open it up to the council if anybody wants to make any comments, remarks.
First off, Mr. Romo, thank you for all the hard work you've done here in the city of Bell Gardens. I'm very sure everyone here knows that you left a mark, in the past, years you've served here in the city. I myself had the pleasure to work alongside you in the Planning Commission for about 4 years, and I've learned a lot from you, your presentations. I think you're very well known for your calm and professional demeanor. That's always, very appreciated, and wishing you the best on all your future endeavors. Thank you, Mr. Romo.
Gus, thank you so much for your hard work and dedication to our city. I know that you spearheaded a lot of our initiatives, and so that does not go unnoticed, everything that you did to get us this far, especially with some of the major projects. So thank you so much, and you'll be missed.
First and foremost, thank you. Since the moment I got here, you've been nothing but great, helpful, and a little light. So thank you for that. I hope everywhere you go, God blesses you and continues to guide you in all your endeavors. And we will greatly miss you. This will always be your home.
Gus, thank you so much for spending your time here in the city of Bell Gardens and also stepping outside your comfort zone and, facing these challenges that as a city we put in front of you, such as the rent control ordinance and, all of the new businesses that we help bring onto the city. Thank you for all that. I really appreciate the way that you did it, the way that you overcame those challenges. And I know whoever you're going to be joining now is very lucky to have you, and can't wait to hear how it goes over there and the next projects that you're going to be working on. So you're always welcome here. You have a family here, you have friends here, and a city that's blossoming. So, when we open the pool, come on by so that you can take a dive. Thank you.
As for my comments, thank you for your service. I think like Mike put it, I mean, you've been here since Mike built up his team back in 2019, and I appreciate your time, your dedication, your effort to make this city succeed. I'm a big believer that a lot of times it starts with the leadership of that department. Right. And if you look behind you, it's a lot of if not everybody from the department is here. Right. And that says a lot. Right. It says a lot about your demeanor. It says about a lot about your leadership within the department. So just again, want to appreciate everything you've done. And in the future, I hope our paths once again cross. I have a couple of notes I drafted in terms of partnerships or things that we got to work along, right, for these past 4 years that I've been here on the council, and even before then. I got to share the opportunity to be on the planning commission as well. And it was a great experience working with you there. We worked on, the Shoal Street project, with the Burke oil site. And then we've worked on the climate action plan that is still in the process that your department oversees. The transit oriented plan, that's another big one that we're working on. And I'm very happy to see that work still going. I mentioned the planning commission already. Something that might be small in how we look at it from the perspective, but like for me, and I've shared this with you and something as I'm trying to pursue perhaps in the future, going into urban planning, city planning, like just how things are. Why is the sidewalk where it is, and why, the different methods that cities use to create, right? And their cities, the city layout. So right here in the city, the bringing in plums, right? The planning land management use system. It's a very interesting format and item to use and tool. So with code enforcement, right? I know George is here as well, and just the leadership that we built there. And finally, I always mention staff's time and the dedication that each of you brings to the city. You have your own families, right? You drive from afar to come here. I believe you drive from a whole different county to get here to here to Bell Gardens, and that's like an hour, 2 hour drive at a time to go one way, and then the other way it's another 2 hours, right? You're spending that time driving plus the time you're here, right? And you've spent perhaps in some occasions more time here with this family than with your own family. So we want you to know that we appreciate that. On behalf of the Bell Gardens residents, we thank you, and always know that Bell Gardens is your home too. So again, thank you so much. And if we can give him another hand. So thank you, everyone. Sure. Yeah. If you want to make any comments.
Thank you, sir. As you know, this is a bittersweet moment for me. I've spent so much time here in Bell Gardens. I mean, even before I started here with Mike and yourselves as a consultant back in 2004 to 2007, I remember thinking, wow, this is one of the best communities I've ever worked for. I want to somehow come back to Bell Gardens. And when the opportunity came up, it was meant to be. At the end of the day, it's tough leaving a place where you love people, you care about people, but you know that you have to continue to grow. And you don't want to just get comfortable and say, well, I'm not going to go anywhere because I'm comfortable here and I'm just going to stay where I'm at, right? I've learned so much from you guys, from your community, from Mike, from the department heads. I love the fact that everybody is open with each other to the point where you can criticize openly, you know, and be comfortable to say, hey, even if we get into a debate about something, it's okay, we're family. You know, we can talk to each other without feeling like there's going to be some resentment or something going on. And I love the fact that you guys are just gelling so great. You know, you're respectful towards each other. You understand what's going on here, the topics. You talk about it. You don't let drama get in the way, you know, and you are so exemplary to your community. The community is watching. All of them are always watching. Eyes are on you. You show that professionalism, and I'm so proud to be a part of Bell Gardens. You know, I think Bell Gardens is the best city in Sela, you know, hands down. So I'm just happy for the opportunity, and I know I'm going to see you at conferences where this is not going to be. This is just until I see you again. Thank you, folks.
Righty then. Thank you so much for that. Moving on to California Arbor Week proclamation. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Councilmember Barcena.
Thank you. This is a proclamation in honor of California Arbor Week, March 7th through 14th. It's a proclamation in honor of California Arbor Week, whereas Arbor Day is celebrated nationally to encourage everyone to maintain and replenish our country's vast forests, orchards, and woodlands. And whereas in California, we also observe Arbor Day starting on the birthday of Luther Burbank, a famed Californian whose life labor produced hundreds of plants and trees that have contributed to the natural splendor and food production in our state. Whereas trees are a valuable economic asset in our cities that help maintain and increase property values, attract business and new residents in urban areas, and whereas trees play an important role in energy conservation by modifying temperature extremes with shade and humidity, and are particularly important in reducing the amount of energy consumed in heating and cooling buildings and homes. Whereas trees planted in urban areas play a significant role in meeting the state's greenhouse gas emission reduction targets by sequestering carbon as well as reducing energy consumption. And whereas trees directly contribute to improving California's air quality by reducing air pollution, by removing airborne particulates from the atmosphere and helping to purify the air. And whereas trees play a significant role in protecting and purifying California's limited water resources by reducing surface runoff, contributing to stormwater management and management activity, and protect urban water resources, whereas trees enhance the aesthetic quality of life in urban communities by providing a natural buffer for surface noise and natural recreational resource for California's children and youth, and play a vital role in improving public health in our communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that our mayor, Jorge Chavez, with the City Council, do hereby proclaim March 7th through 14th, and annually thereafter as California Arbor Week in the city of Bell Gardens, and urge all residents to observe and celebrate the week by planting trees for your own benefit and for the benefit of future generations. Proclaim this 10th day of March 2025 by our Mayor Jorge Chavez and the Council of the City of Bell Gardens.
Thank you so much for that. We are going to go ahead and move on to the public hearing. We will now begin. Let's see, I want to make sure I didn't skip the public comment period. Yeah, we will now begin with item number 6.1. At this time, I will open the public hearing at 6:29 p.m. City Manager, please introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor Chavez. This item is consideration of ordinance number 952 to authorize a development agreement between the City of Bell Gardens, Flora Hospitality Group LLC, and James N. Tate III Trust relating to the property located at 6638 Eastern Avenue in the City of Bell Gardens, known as Mecca. With that, I will turn over to our Deputy City Manager, Community Development Director, Gus Romo, to introduce the item. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager and Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm going to turn this over to our project manager, our associate planner, and also our acting city planner, Mona Masayed.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor, as well as fellow council members, staff, directors, and the public. Before you this evening is ordinance number 952, a proposed development agreement number 2024-048, the proposed cannabis retail use and development agreement with Flora Hospitality Group LLC, located at 6638 Eastern Avenue. Next slide, please. The recommendation this evening is to introduce by waiving full reading and conduct a public hearing, introducing ordinance number 952 by title only, and conduct first reading of ordinance number 952, authorizing the city to enter into and execute a development agreement for cannabis retail use in exchange for public benefits. A brief background of the project as well as the site conditions. On February 19th, 2025, the Planning Commission approved the CUP with a 3-1-1 vote. The site and the proposed project is for a 3,780 square foot commercial building with proposed tenant improvements and site improvements. The Planning Commission recommended the DA approval. Next slide, please. The site description. The project site is located in a mixed use, that is commercial residential zone. The general plan designation is also mixed use. The site is 6,286 square feet. The surrounding land uses are mixed use to the north, east, and west, and to the south, it is heavy commercial. Next slide, please. The proposed site and floor plan improvements. The tenant improvements will be to an existing commercial building to include a 1,588 to be specific sales area, as well as a back end that would include offices, vault, staff break rooms, dispatch area, security rooms. The proposed site will include 6 new automobile parking spaces, 1 loading space, 16 bicycle parking spaces, as well as 2 EV charging capable spaces. The subject site is accessible from Lubeck Street. Next slide, please. These are proposed renderings of the retail store. It has a contemporary design and meets compliance with the Eastern and Florence design guidelines. Next slide, please. The proposed operating standards and conditions of approval. The following 4 noted: the subject site conditions, security, age restrictions, and hours of operations have all been incorporated into the conditions of approval of the conditional use permit. The proposed development agreement. What staff is suggesting is that the agreement be before you actually is to accept the development agreement as originally negotiated and presented by staff. The proposed development agreement would be for an initial 5-year term, subject to an option to extend for an additional 5 years for a total of 10 years. The application would be responsible for an annual community benefit in the amount of $100,000 to be renewed on an annual basis every January, and the applicant would be responsible for a quarterly community benefit equal to 7% of gross receipts. 80% of all community benefits would be dedicated towards the city's youth and educational programming and for the city's housing programs. Benefits would be utilized for the youth programming, as well as housing programming and long-range planning. Staff's analysis. Applicant's request is consistent with the Bell Gardens general plan. Land Use Policy 3, as well as Land Use Policy 5. The proposal is additionally compliant to Chapter 9.12, the commercial zones, as well as Chapter 9.78, Eastern and Florence standards. It is compliant with Section 9.50.050, basis for approval or denial of a conditional use permit. The proposal is additionally compliant with Section 9.20.160 of the Bell Gardens Municipal Code regarding cannabis retail conditional use. The recommendation is to waive full reading and introduce ordinance number 952 by title only, and conduct the first reading of ordinance number 952, authorizing the city to enter into and execute a development agreement for a cannabis retail use in exchange for public benefits. The applicant is present. Should there be any questions, staff and city attorney are also available. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Does the applicant wish to speak? You'll have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, can you hear me okay? Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I'm Noelle Franz. I'm the founder and CEO of Mecca Dispensaries and Mecca Products. I have agreed to the terms of the development agreement, and I wanted to come introduce myself personally. I own 2 retail storefronts in the city of LA, as well as distribution, manufacturing, and cultivation facilities. While I've had the privilege of serving hundreds of thousands of customers since opening in 2012, my focus has always been on quality over quantity. Maintaining fewer locations has allowed me to build a strong foundation, perfect operations, and provide exceptional service and products with 0 compliance infractions. And now, with over a decade of experience, I'm excited to expand thoughtfully and bring that same level of care and expertise to this community. At Mecca, our staff, customers, and visitors adhere to a strict code of conduct that goes above and beyond state regulations. We maintain a 0 tolerance policy for inappropriate behavior, refuse service to anyone under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and we strictly prohibit loitering or on-site consumption. Safety and security are our top priorities. Our comprehensive security plan integrates multiple layers of protection, balancing technology, trained personnel, and robust physical design. Licensed and armed guards monitor the premises, manage entry points, and respond to incidents. Our staff is trained in security protocols such as recognizing suspicious behavior, handling emergencies, and ensuring regulatory compliance. Our back office is restricted with limited access, and cash pickups are conducted 2 to 3 times per week by armored vehicles at varying times. The store is equipped with intrusion and motion sensors, panic buttons, and 24-hour high-definition surveillance cameras with 90-day storage. We've also worked with law enforcement to provide exterior camera footage that helps reduce and deter crime, and we proudly support the Los Angeles Police Foundation. Our physical design elements include controlled entry points, lighting, parking lot fencing, bollards, and reinforced walls and doors with tamper-proof materials. The store layout maximizes visibility and minimizes blind spots. Customers are personally accompanied from entry to exit, providing both personalized service and an added layer of security. Mecca is committed to being a proactive community partner. We work alongside local residents and businesses to enhance public safety, cleaning up graffiti, picking up trash, removing weeds, and assisting elderly customers to their vehicles. We also use state-of-the-art odor mitigation systems and ensure all prepackaged products are sealed. Our typical customer is not what you'd expect. 42% are between 30 to 45 years old, 18% are 46 to 60, 10% are 61 to 75, and 2% are over 76 years old. Each store has a designated neighborhood liaison with posted contact information, and most days you will find me there personally interacting with customers. We even have letters of recommendation from our local Los Angeles Neighborhood Council. Excuse me, I'm battling a cold this evening. We anticipate creating 20 to 30 new jobs, with the vast majority hired directly from the city of Bell Gardens. Currently, 63% of our workforce is Hispanic, with 71% in upper management. We work with the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, and we have a signed labor peace agreement. Our employees receive benefits, a living wage, and ongoing training on product knowledge, dosage, and customer service. Upon DA approval, we will implement bilingual community outreach initiatives, including job fairs, mailers, and open houses. These efforts will focus on cannabis education, providing residents with the opportunity to learn more about the industry and its benefits. We offer a wide range of products, including low THC and non-psychoactive options, such as balms, topicals, sugar-free gummies, providing natural alternatives for managing conditions like insomnia, nerve pain, and muscle discomfort, options we believe will be well received by your residents. Mecca will also serve as an anchor for economic activity. Our customers will support local businesses like gas stations, restaurants, retail outlets, contributing to city tax revenues. We are committed to collaborating with local businesses through joint promotions and charitable partnerships. As a mother of 2 young boys, I inherently understand the sensitivity surrounding our business. I am committed to operating responsibly, adhering to strict state marketing and packaging guidelines that prohibit targeting children. Mecca also maintains a subtle, non-intrusive aesthetic and utilizes age gating for all digital marketing efforts. I recognize that cannabis can be a sensitive topic in Bell Gardens, but I welcome the opportunity to change that perception. I am dedicated to being a model operator, prioritizing the safety and well-being of our community, customers, and staff. It is for all of these reasons that I respectfully request the development agreement approval. Thank you, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you so much for that. We will, any member of the council have any questions or comments?
How many dispensaries do you have? I know that you said you operate in other fashions within the cannabis industry, but I want to know how many and where are they located?
I have 2. I have one, they're both in Los Angeles. One is near Culver City and one is in Hollywood.
And those operating for how long now?
The one near Culver City since 2012,
Mhm.
and the one in Hollywood, it's under construction currently, but I also have my distribution there. That's been there since 2019.
And since opening those cannabis dispensaries, have you had any major issues that you can see as a concern, and how were you able to overcome those issues?
Um, Actually, the only issue is when building and having to do with city permits, honestly. But now times are changing, cities are becoming more open to it and they understand it. So that's just been the biggest hurdle, getting open.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
When do you plan on, if everything goes as expected, when would you be open for business?
I'm hoping 8 months.
For the location that's located in Hollywood, you mentioned the build-up process was
Yes.
a challenge, right?
Yes.
How long did that one take since its inception?
That one took about 9 months, but it was a pretty small location, so I wish it were faster.
As an operator, how has it been managing one location and soon, managing 2, and now here we are, for the third proposal. How has it been being an operator?
I've been doing this for a really long time, since 2012. I'm really excited to open here. I think it's a great community. I think it's a fantastic location. I'm welcoming the change in the industry. You know, we are heavily burdened by tax. We do have to compete with the illegal market, so there's challenges. But being in the business as long as I have, I know to change and I know to pivot when I need to pivot. And just being in this industry, you have to expect change.
Were there any financial challenges when building out the first location in Mid-City and then in Hollywood?
No.
Where do you secure your funding from?
Well, I'm the sole owner, but I am bringing on a partner for this development. I think experience brings a lot to the table.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You mentioned it's a great community. Why Bell Gardens?
That location in particular, there's going to be a lot of commuters, and I think that development around it brings in a lot of people. But I get the sense of community here as well. I already have my current employees asking if they can come over here because they commute from over here. And you're also surrounded by opt-out cities. So I think it's a huge advantage.
We do have neighboring communities like Commerce, Maywood that already have dispensaries.
Mhm.
So you do mention that'll bring a traffic.
Mhm.
Will you see any of that jeopardizing your sales in particular?
I don't think so. I think we were discussing hours of operation. I think if we have a competitive edge that way, no, I think I'm excited to compete.
And then you do mention that you like the community again, right?
Mhm.
I don't know if you're aware, we do have a little more, conservative values more out when it
And that's
comes
why
to
I
that
did want
topic.
to address that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recognize that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So I do live around that area, so I know it's been like a big talk. And you do mention community outreach. How would that look?
Well, I think we would start with an open house, probably. I think a lot of the stigma, we just need to face it with education. So we could do a combined event with like a job fair, say. But I would personally like to go there and just meet the residents. And, once we open, I think everyone is going to feel a lot better. They're going to see how we operate. They're going to see our clientele is not what they expect. But I would start with an open house, more centered on education.
Yeah, go for it.
So obviously, the community benefit amount is $100,000 every year, which is already a big deal for us. But are you currently involved with community efforts in other cities throughout the year? And if so, can you please describe what those efforts are?
We usually center on doing partnerships with other businesses. In the past, we reached out to charitable organizations, and because cannabis is still federally illegal, they cannot work with us. So we usually do joint marketing efforts with other businesses. If they have block parties, we sponsor them, things like that. Referrals.
Another concern was one of the residents brought up the dress code. What does that look for you and for the bud tenders and all that?
Oh, well, at my store, they'll look professional. Yeah.
Alrighty then. I have a couple of questions. In the past, we've had other cannabis operators come forward. I think this is the fourth or fifth. The fifth one approached the council. And we ran into a couple of issues with some of the past ones in regards to starting them up, right? Getting groundbreaking ceremony, doing the whole thing. And it's been very difficult, right? A lot of some of these operators, they've earned or they've received, their agreement, but they just haven't executed it, right? So I'm curious, if granted a development agreement, what's the timeline looking like? I know you mentioned 8 months, but in your experience, I mean, by when can we hear back after this?
I mean, I don't have 20 stores as a few of the other applicants do. This is my sole focus. So I would be open this year. I know I have to pay another $100,000 next January, so I need to get open.
So are we looking, I know it's March, right?
Yes.
I know, ballpark, do we have an idea next month, later this month?
No, we still have to finalize, right, Mr. Romo?
It'd be a matter of, I think what the mayor's referring to is the signing and recording of the development agreement, showing proof of insurance and paying the community benefit. How quickly would that be done?
And then construction, and I have the team ready to go.
Got it. Who do you consider your biggest competitor?
At this location,
Yes, and then also in general.
the illegal market is my biggest competitor. Here, I would say is the store in Linwood, OG Nation, probably.
G Nation?
hmm
Never heard of that.
It's the nearest store to here.
Got it.
Sorry, not Linwood. It is Maywood.
Maywood.
Maywood, yeah.
Okay. The final question I have, and I know, I think it was in the planning commission meeting that was discussed, was regards to, there's a certain amount of parking requirements, right? This lot is a relatively small lot. In the past, it used to be a furniture store. It's no longer a furniture store. I believe there's like an alleyway, and then there's like a vacant lot, right? I think that's used for stationing vehicles. And then you got residential streets, Ajax, El Celinda, and a couple, and then obviously Loveland is residential. We have a lot of, probably one of the biggest priorities for our residents is parking, right? And considering the size of that lot, how can you assure us, or what can you do as an operator to ensure that there won't be an influx of vehicles that are going to be parking on the residential street, which is already going to be packed as it is?
I actually have a lot of experience with that, and we work with our neighbors. If they do not want us to park in a certain space, our security guards make sure that customers don't park there. So I do have a lot of experience in managing that situation.
So as far as regulation, would it be you'll tell security, hey, you can't park on this street or how?
Correct.
Okay,
Mhm.
got it. All right, that concludes my portion of the questions. Anybody else have any last minute questions? Okay.
In terms of like security, how does that look for you?
What regards security guards? Well, I have an experienced team of guards I've worked with for decades, armed guards, but they're also known for their service. They do everything from, managing the outside with parking to watching the inside. We really like to, the saying, offense is the best defense. We like to prevent things from happening before anything can happen. I mean, it's the best team.
And have you in the past had any major issues with like the safety?
Not
aspect?
safety. I mean, a few times we've had to escort some transient people out of the building. But no, we really are known for our atmosphere and the happiness and the joy and making sure things don't get to a certain level. And if they do, the security escorts them outside to diffuse it outside.
I just realized I have a couple more just came up to me considering obviously cannabis, it's a cash business.
Yes,
They're a hot spot when it comes to someone trying to steal.
yes.
What's your, aside from the security or non security, what other techniques would you use to deter that sort of that the store doesn't get burglarized?
So security, always having layers of protection is the best. So I don't want to say everything this evening that we do, but there's so many points. You want to have so many points to where someone cannot get in. But also having different times where the cash pickup comes. And thankfully, we accept debit and credit now. So cash is not what it used to be.
That's an interesting one. It's now credit and debit. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Great, great. I know you mentioned you have a bargaining agreement with UFCW. Which local is that?
My employees have not opted into that agreement, but when they're ready to do so, I have my person to call. They're ready to move forward.
So the current employees in the Culver City location, the
Mhm.
Hollywood store, they
They
haven't
have
signed
not
on to
opted
the
in.
agreement.
No,
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
but I have nothing precludes me from doing so.
Got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? All right. Seeing none, I think we're gonna go ahead and we'll move on to the public participation portion, correct? Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. We will now move on to public comments for this item. I will call 3 speakers at a time. Please make your way over to the podium to line up. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation.
Yes, thank you. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on public hearing item 6.1. Please state your name for the record before addressing your comments. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone, and when instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through Zoom may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature and select the unmute or microphone icon when instructed. We will first hear from speakers that are in person. I did not receive any public comment cards. If any member of the public did mean to provide a comment for this item, please submit your public comment card. Meanwhile, I will also announce that there were 17 written comments that were submitted and distributed to the full council. I do have one person who has their hand virtually raised, and I didn't receive any public comment cards. Zoom ID Ari, you may unmute or you have been unmuted. You may proceed with your comment.
Hi, I just had a question regarding the cannabis dispensary. So I'm joining this meeting just because it's for a school assignment, and I just had a question. Like, I know that she did speak about like the reasoning behind it, but I just wanted to say, how would this dispensary benefit the community?
So this isn't a period for question and answer. This is a period for you to just provide comment on the item. Did you have any comments that you want to provide?
Not at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, that was the last public comment.
If I may,
Yeah, absolutely.
for the speaker, if they want to send us an email, we can provide information. I know it was a school assignment, and I just want to make sure we help out with some information for her assignment. She can contact us directly at the city. Okay.
I'm actually curious to hear that, and maybe we could just ask it right now. And considering it's still during the public hearing, and
So-
I think that we can still ask questions. I just want to confirm with legal.
So the questions would be during, not public comment, it'd be during deliberation. So if you can close public comment and then you can ask the question.
Understood. If there's no further questions and comments from the public, we will now close the public participation portion at 6:57 p.m. And now we can go to council member comments and questions. And I'll go ahead and ask the question that was asked during the comment period, which is for the school assignment. How will this benefit our community? And if possible, it'd be great if the applicant could answer that.
The development fee, I think the development benefit would be the biggest positive for Bell Gardens, but also providing natural alternatives to prescription drugs for treatments is another benefit. Providing jobs is another benefit. Being an economic resource where customers can come and, when they come in the morning or they come in the evening, they're also going to stop and visit other businesses in Bell Gardens. So it's a lot of benefits.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Now, if there's no further council member comments or questions, I will now close the public hearing at 6:58 p.m. And I guess we move on to the motion portion. All right. Anybody on the council on the dais have any motions they want to make?
Yes. So I want to make a motion to waive the full reading and introduce the ordinance number 925 by title only, and to approve the proposed development number 2024-048 for a cannabis retail store at 6638 Eastern Avenue. However, I would also like to direct staff to go back and revise the DA to require the DA to be executed within 60 days.
Just for clarification, if we do make an amendment to the DA, it would come back for first reading. So it would be direction to bring back the DA for first reading with that revision.
That's correct.
All right, we have a motion on the floor.
I'll go ahead and second that motion.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Barcena. Just for clarification, I know you said 60 days from today, or we're going to bring back this item again March 24th and then 60 days from the 24th.
No, so let me clarify. So we're bringing it back for first reading at the second meeting in March with the revision that the development agreement has to be executed within 60 days of execution. So that would count as the first reading, and then it would come back for a second reading on consent, and then 30 days after the effective date would take place.
So quickly, can we get what day would that be? Do we know? I think it'd be important we just kind of nail down what day that
So we
is.
come back for the first reading on the 24th of March. Would come back for the second reading on the 14th of April, and then become effective 30 days after the 14th.
Correct.
Approximately May 13th, I believe, give or take. I could be a day off on there. And then it would be 60 days from May 13th. So that would go middle of June to July, roughly, probably 11th or 12th, depending on, because there's 31 days in May and July.
Got it. Thank you for that. Okay, seeing as we have a motion and a second, can we go ahead and get roll call, please? Oh, wait. Oh. Go ahead and pass it to legal counsel with Paloma.
Yes, Paloma McAvoy with City Attorney's Office, just for everyone's benefit. In order to effectuate a DA, there are 3 things that are necessary. The DA needs to be signed by both the applicant and the property owner. The applicant needs to provide the proof of insurance required by the city and the $100,000 community benefits, just so that everybody's on the same page. And that all 3 of those, based on Councilmember De Leon Sanchez's motion, would be required within 60 days of the effectuation of the ordinance.
If everything goes well, it'd be May 13, 14, give or take.
May 14th.
May 14th. There we go. Got it. Thank you so much for that. Seeing as we have a motion, a second, we got clarification from legal counsel. We can go ahead and do a roll call, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Barcena, Councilwoman Guillen,
No.
Councilwoman Sanchez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem de la Rosa,
Yes.
and Mayor Chavez.
That'll be a no for me.
Motion passes 3-2.
Thank you so much for that. We will now move on to public participation on non-agenda items. City Clerk, please announce instructions.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items not listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, subject to an overall 30-minute period. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone, and when instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through Zoom may make a request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature and select the unmute or microphone icon when instructed. We will first hear from speakers that are in person, and we did not receive any written communication.
Thank you so much for that. I believe this is for non-agenda, correct? I think we do have a speaker. I'll go ahead and call up Richard Jarman. Thank you for that.
I told her I wanted to have my card destroyed as soon as this was over. And I guess she took me seriously. My name is Richard Jarman, and I am the pastor of Touchpoint Church here on the corner of Florence and Ira. We have been serving the city of Bell Gardens and the community for over 85 years. And I'm here today because something egregious has been happening and has happened at the Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall right across the bridge here in Downey. 22 officers from that facility have already been arraigned for what's been called a gladiator style fighting ring, where they were forcing the kids that are part of that facility. They've been forcing them to fight against each other for the entertainment value of the officers. And it's barbaric and it's wrong. And I want to just urge you as the city council and also our law enforcement from the city to make a public declaration that says we do not approve of this. We need to have oversight from the community, and we need to have reforms, because these are children. And yeah, some of them have done really bad things, and there's no question about that, but these are children. And we will not be able to rescue them from the terrible position they're in by treating them in a barbaric and dehumanizing way. So I want to urge the city council, and again, as I said, law enforcement here, to make a public declaration that this is not acceptable in our community, in our county. And I hope that you will join me in making this declaration, and not just as far as your comments, but a public and official declaration that the city stands behind, that we do not allow and we do not condone this kind of behavior, and that we need to have oversight and reform. Thank you.
Thank you for that. If there's no objection by the members of the City Council Successor Agency, I will close public participation on non-agenda items. All right. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for agenda items, public participation.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to speak on items listed on the agenda. Please state your name for the record. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone, and when instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining through Zoom may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature and select unmute or microphone icon when instructed. And we didn't receive any public comment cards or any written comment cards, and no one virtually is raising their hand.
Thank you for that, City Clerk. If there's no objection by the members of City Council, I will close public participation and move on to Mr. Michael O'Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor Chavez. If I go back to February 25th, we hosted the Toastmasters Open House here at City Hall. And just a reminder to everybody, residents, employees, or even people that live nearby Bell Gardens, we host the Toastmasters Club 587 here at City Hall at 6 p.m. every Tuesday. So if you're interested in listening or learning, speaking more, hearing interesting stories, and working with a good group of people, come over at 6 p.m. You don't need to let us know in advance. We'll let you in, and you can be part of the Toastmasters group. On February 26th, as with every Wednesday at Veterans Park at 6 p.m., we host an open art studio. So this has only been going on for about 2 months or so now. So we're still moving forward with that, hoping to get more people interested in attending. On February 27th, we held a virtual open house for the transit-oriented community-specific plan and zoning code update. On February 28th, we had our resident art and yard sale at Veterans Park. On March 4th, we had the in-person survey for the transit-oriented community-specific plan. On March 5th, we've been holding a lot of these public meetings. We had a public meeting on the community action plan. That was also held here at City Hall. On March 6th at Ross Hall, we held a first of 3 workshops with the Mexican American Opportunity Fund. This one was a Know Your Rights workshop. These workshops have all been well attended and would anticipate to be well attended going into the future. On March 7th, we had our resident art and yard sale and our free farmers market, where food is given away free. If you're a resident or you just come by, you can receive free produce. On March 8th, this Saturday, we held our annual 5K walk run. It included a kids half mile and a tree planting by SLA that was in recognition of California Arbor Week. Time moved ahead. Clocks went ahead 1 hour on March 9th. On March 18th at 4 p.m., we have our monthly workshop for property owners. On March 19th, we have our 4 p.m. workshop for tenants. While this is going on too, if you go by Veterans Park over near the skate park, the dog park construction's in full swing. They have all the turf taken out. It looks like some of the decomposed granite's going in, and I see some of the fence posts are going in as well. So that's still about another 6 weeks away from total completion. Also at the same time, we have Lucha Cat, Javier, a local artist, who's completed now 2 murals on utility boxes and has 2 more to go. He's working on the weekends. We're going to use that as a kickoff to a sort of an adopt a utility box mural program for residents that we'll be introducing here shortly once these 4 are done. Just want to make mention on the consent calendar. There's a lot of items on there. There's several items there that are there to help support and enforce our rent stabilization and tenant protection ordinance. We have contracts with an interim community development director to make sure things keep moving forward, a contract with a third-party hearing officer, administrative support for our PLHA program, and also appraisal services support and expert witness for a hearing that's ongoing regarding our rent stabilization ordinance. Also, we have a couple items regarding city beautification that are on this consent calendar as well. We have the completion of the LED lighting project over at Veterans Park. This is the lighting over in the monument area that lights up the flags, the monument, provides a level of security there that wasn't there before, and also allows people to enjoy the monuments just as they're driving by in the nighttime, not just in the daytime. We've got a landscape maintenance contract extension that's going to allow for us to get an RFP process out. And we've also got a no-cost amendment with our construction management and inspection firm for the work they're doing over at the Ford Park Aquatic Center. With that, I say thank you and turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, City Manager. We will go ahead and move on to consent calendar. Does any member of the council successor agency wish to pull an item for separate discussion? Seeing none, can we get a motion?
Move to approve consent
Second.
calendar.
We got a motion by Councilmember Barcena, a second by Councilwoman De Leon Sanchez. We'll go ahead and we'll do a roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council and successor agency, Barcena. Councilwoman Guillen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sanchez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem De La Rosa,
Yes.
and Mayor Chavez.
Aye.
Thank you for that. Moving on to item number 11, local commissions appointment list. Any members of the council have any changes, additions? All right.
I'd like to remove Mr. Christian Sanchez from Recreation, Cultural, and Youth.
Got it. We have a removal. Anybody else want to make any changes? All right. Do we need a motion to remove somebody? Okay. Can we get a motion for that? So move.
Second.
All right. We have a motion by Mayor Chavez and a second by Councilwoman De Leon Sanchez. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right. Ayes have it. Moving on to 11.2, consideration of ordinance number 956 to amend Title II. I'll go ahead and turn it over to City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Chavez. This item is a continuation of the ordinance to add a new chapter to establish a policy for the use of electronic or digital signatures, which the city doesn't currently allow for legal documents and certain grant documents and things of that nature. I'll turn it over to our clerk, our city clerk, Daisy Gomez, for a presentation. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Daisy.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Just to introduce the item, it's to consider ordinance number 956 to establish a policy for the use of electronic or digital signatures. And just to give a little background, the state of California adopted the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act, which is the acronym for UETA. It was effective January 1st, 2000, and that regulates the use of electronic signatures when conducting business, commercial, and governmental affairs. The attached ordinance that was part of the packet would authorize the city to establish a policy to use electronic or digital signatures in conformance with the UETA. Establishing the requirements that would authorize the city to utilize electronic or digital signatures in conformance with the UETA, as well as the Government Code Section 16.5, as it pertains to digital signatures and the use of acceptable technology. So briefly, the city desires to transition to a more paperless agency where it's appropriate. And by having the option to use electronic signatures for documents between city staff and external parties. The use of electronic signatures will enable efficiencies, citywide department processes, and provide a more effective interaction with the business community and other city partners. And so staff is recommending that the city council find the proposed ordinance number 956 categorically exempt from CEQA and waive the full reading and introduce ordinance number 956 by title only to establish a policy for the use of electronic or digital signatures. And if you have any questions, the city attorney is here to answer any questions, and I could assist as well.
Thank you so much for that, City Clerk. Any members of the council have any questions, comments, points of clarification? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and make a motion to find ordinance number 956 exempt from CEQA and waive the first reading and introduce ordinance number 956 to establish a policy for the use of electronic signatures. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Mayor Chavez, second by Councilwoman Guillen. I'll go ahead and do all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, I said aye too. Just want to make sure that's noted. Moving on, 11.3 Aquatic Center project quarterly update. Mr. City Manager.
Thanks again, Mayor Chavez. So this is an item, obviously, in the title we bring back on a quarterly basis. There's a lot of work that goes on between those 90 days from when we report back to the council. We have our aquatics ad hoc that we meet with regularly as well. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our Public Works Director, Bernie Iniguez. He's going to go through the first portion of the presentation, then he'll turn it over to our Recreation Community Services Director, Liz Nava, for the second part of the presentation. But before Bernie starts, I just want to kind of mention to the council where we're at with this project. We're in that spot where we can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel on the construction phase of the project after many years. We're about 6 months out from that. So Bernie is spending a lot of time, energy, making sure that that project stays on task. And it's starting to kind of feather into the operations, or what we see at the light of that end of the tunnel. As soon as Public Works is done with the project, they turn the keys over to Recreation Community Services. We're now shifting a lot of the time and energy behind the scenes onto funding and staffing the actual operations of this aquatic center. So we're in this spot where it's probably still 80-20 construction operations, but it'll start to fade more to a 50-50 here over the next 3 months. So with that, just queuing up the presentation, I'll turn it over to our Public Works Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Kelly. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. I'll go ahead and start by showing some of the conceptual renderings. So here we see the front of the building. This is what the building is going to look like. On the left, we see the 50-meter competition pool, and on the right, we see the therapy pool. Here we see the activity pool. On the left, we have the fitness center, and on the right, it shows the breezeway along with a row of lockers. And here we have the terrace grass seating, which is part of the amphitheater that we're building. And here's just an overall aerial conceptual of what the final product would look like. So I'll go ahead and start with background. On January 22nd, 2024, the council awarded a contract to Bernard's for a total of $26,334,000. On May 24, 2024, Bernard's completed remediation of asbestos and lead-containing materials. On July 5th, 2024, they completed demo activities. And on July 8th, 2024, Bernard's commenced construction. So now I'll discuss the progress over the last quarter. RJM Design Group is the project architect, and for the last quarter, they reviewed project submittals and requests for information. They participated in the weekly construction progress meetings, and they also made plan revisions as necessary. So again, as we go through the project, every now and then we make changes, and they're there to modify and give Bernard's new construction details. Ardura is the construction management and inspection firm. The progress they have completed over the last quarter includes conducting construction inspections. They coordinated the weekly construction progress meetings. They coordinated meetings with the utility companies for the future connections to the new facility. This includes Edison, Golden State Water, Spectrum, and SoCalGas. And they also routed project submittals and requests for information, either for the city's review or the architect's review. Bernard's, which again is the construction contractor, has completed the following tasks for the quarter. They completed the installation of rebar and concrete masonry unit, or CMU, walls for the aquatics building. They completed the grading for the activity pool walls and floors. They completed the installation of plumbing and backfilling for both the activity pool and the competition pool. They completed the installation of concrete and shotcrete for the activity pool. So shotcrete is the same, but they have pressure on the walls, and that's why it's called shotcrete. So it's concrete installed with pressure. Bernard's also completed the installation of concrete and shotcrete for the competition pool, and this was done pouring 500 cubic yards of concrete. That was a full day operation, actually an extended day operation, starting early. I think it was from 4 in the morning all the way to 6 p.m. So that was a long day. They also completed the installation of steel columns and beams for the new aquatics building roof structure. They completed the installation of metal decking for the aquatics building, completed the installation of metal studs for the aquatics building interior walls, and they also completed the excavation for the therapy pool. The therapy pool was done towards the end because that was the construction ingress egress for the vehicles. Bernard's also has completed the installation of plumbing and concrete for a therapy pool. They began the installation of overhead conduits and boxes for the aquatics building and electrical, plumbing, and HVAC lines. They completed the installation of the CMU block walls. They completed the installation of the palm tree planters and also completed the installation of the amphitheater CMU walls. Bernard's also began the installation of drywall for the aquatics building interior. They began the installation for the fire pit wall tile at the therapy pool, began trenching for the plumbing lines that will run from the 3 pools to the equipment and search pit room. They began the installation of the slide for the activity pool, and they also ordered equipment, materials, and supplies for the project, along with routing project submittals and requests for information to our Ardura, our CM&I firm. So here we show some of the construction photos. On the upper left, it shows the excavation for the competition pool, along with some of the plumbing. On the upper right, we see the CMU block for the actual building. Towards the middle, you start to see the installation of the CMU block for the perimeter walls. On the right, you see some of those steel beams that were installed. And on the lower right, we see the concrete that has been installed for the activity pool. Here again, we show more progress for the building. We start to see the interior being built up on the upper right. In the middle, you start to see the concrete that has been installed for the competition pool. And on the lower right, we start to see some of the excavation and rebar for the walls for the fire pit area and the therapy pool. Here we see some of the photos of the interior on top. It shows you the interior steel studs that are being installed. On the upper right, we see the CMU planters for the palm trees. In the middle, you start to see the building more pronounced. It's starting to take shape. On the middle right, you see the slide that's being installed. And on the bottom, you start to see a lot of the plumbing lines that are going to be fed from each pool into the equipment and search pit room. Here we have a couple of aerial photos of the full facility. And here is more of an extended view showing how the facility is looking as opposed to the current features of the facility. So here we have a time-lapse video for the pool construction, and this video runs from May 2024 to March 2025. And I'll let this play through. And here we have the time-lapse video for the same period, but for the aquatics building construction. In regard to the tentative schedule for the upcoming major activities, in March 31st, we expect completion of the construction of the amphitheater and the aquatics building roof. By April 30th, we anticipate completion of the installation of the entry monument sign in the fire pit. On May 30th, we anticipate completion of the pool plaster for the competition pool and the activity pool. And then the pool plaster for the therapy pool on June 13th. On July 2nd, we anticipate completion of the installation of permanent power for the whole facility. On July 31st, we anticipate completion of the installation of the shade structures and the planting of the trees and the shrubs. On August 4th, we anticipate completion of construction for the aquatics building interior. And then on September 26th, we anticipate substantial project completion. So by then, everything should be dialed in, built in, and installed. So now I'll go ahead and turn it over to Director of Recreation and Community Services, Liz Nava, to talk about current and future programming.
You want to just do the picture? Thank you, Bernie. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Just really quickly, wanted to briefly, as a reminder to the community, mention that the Recreation and Community Services Department, despite not having an aquatic facility here in the city of Bell Gardens, we continue to provide aquatic programming through our neighbor city, Montebello, at the Chet Hollyfield Pool in Montebello. And we're very successful in running swimming programs and aquatics programs. We were able to increase the amount of grant funds that we originally received from LA 84, which was $10,000, which offered 300 free swim lessons to Bell Gardens residents. And last year, we received 20,000, which we were able to double our free swim lessons. And with the opening of our new aquatic center, we've already been in communication with LA 84 in hopes to increase that number again, since the capacity for additional swim lessons will be available. This slide shows a table that is a comparison of operations, what we're currently doing, what the city of Bell Gardens did back in 2016 when we used to have a pool in-house, and then the potential new programming once our new aquatic center opens. And this is just to give an idea of where we are, where we were, and the potential of what can be. As you can see in the first column, what we're currently doing in the city of Montebello is hosting aquatic operations Monday through Thursday and on Saturday. And unfortunately, due to the size of the facility, we're only able to offer swim lessons and recreational swim, so just kind of free play in the pool. In 2016, the pool was only open for 3 months in the summer and was jam-packed with activities as is listed there, including swim lessons, lap swim, special events, fun days, dive-in movie nights. The pool was able to be rented out for personal use and parties. There were many events. There was a swim team and even a junior guard program. So the next column shows the potential of what we can do when we open the doors in October with our new aquatic facility, given the same amount of staff that we currently have now. And the same hours that we're currently hosting in our aquatics programming. So we will greatly get to expand what we're offering our community. So as you can see, going from swim lessons and rec swim back to offering lap swim, potentially a new swim team for Bell Gardens, offering water aerobics for all ages, but probably the target would be our senior community. Also, we have space and capacity now to offer other programming, like having community classes like CPR and safety classes. And we have a small gym or weight room that our community can use, which will be really fun. And just to give you an idea of staffing levels, it looks very similar across the board. Right now, we currently have a recreation supervisor and a recreation coordinator who, in addition to their other duties assigned, oversee the aquatics programming with a team of part-time staff, which is a pool manager, 2 assistant pool managers, a senior guard, instructor guard, lifeguards, and a recreation leader that helps with the administrative side. So the potential for the 10-month operations for the new aquatic center here, the facility will open under my direction as the director with the assistance of a full-time coordinator dedicated just to the aquatic facility. But we will also have a team of part-time staff to manage all of the operations as we have been in the past, but with the caveat of adding additional rec leaders to oversee the locker room, the weight room, and the administrative side of the programming. Just to give you an idea of operating costs, now please take into consideration this is a very low number because all this takes into account is operating costs for the program. It doesn't take into account staff time or utilities, because right now in the city of Montebello, the city of Montebello covers the utilities at the pool. And back in 2016, it was not out of the recreation department. So very minimal cost for programming currently. So obviously with a new state-of-the-art aquatic center, the operating costs will significantly increase. So this slide shows not only the operating costs, but also estimated staff costs. And you can see that that's approximately $2.7 million for 10 months of programming. So that's almost year-round how we're currently operating. However, this is not taking into account any revenues brought in. This is purely expenditures. Also, the city is currently budgeting approximately $400,000 for operations, including staff time, chemicals, equipment, all of aquatics programming. So the additional funds needed for a 10 months operation is about 2.3 million.
And Liz, if you stay on that slide for just a minute, I think, when we talk about additional funds needed, so that's in addition to what we already budget. So that's where, as the council, when the budget gets put together, this first year, the first fiscal year, it'll be half of the fiscal year. So you'll only see roughly half of the cost. But once there's a full year period of time, you would expect to see an increase of $2.3 million on the expenditure side. The director mentioned revenues. We've talked with a couple cities, but one that sticks in my mind that seems to have pretty ongoing use of their aquatic center. The revenues are about $700,000 a year. This is like a top tier aquatic center too, a little bit east of here. So I think if we even use that number, which I think is an optimistic number, the net cost increase would be about 1.5, give or take, 1.5 or 1.6 million dollars of new operating costs that we don't currently have budgeted and would presumably not be covered by revenues. So it's a significant amount, I think, especially in light of the revenue analysis that we've been doing and sharing with council. And just looking from the big picture perspective on how you would fund something like that. You could obviously look at other services that you currently provide. And then I think naturally there are other revenue sources that are out there that are not committed to any specific use that potentially could be used by the council or directed by the council, be used to fund the operations here. So this is, as I mentioned earlier, as we're kind of shifting, not to take for granted the construction, because there's still some rainy period coming up and other things that can go wrong that are outside of our control. But this will start to be the shift of the challenge of the aquatic center, from finding financing to build the pool, getting everybody in place to get it built, actually having the construction done and all the inspection work and all that. And then the difficult part then will be looking at the funding of it. And the reason also the director shows this with 10-month operating costs is that would presume that for approximately 8 to 10 weeks throughout the year, that the aquatic center, at least the pool activities, generally speaking, would be shut down for maintenance purposes. Doesn't mean the other parts of the facility couldn't potentially be used, like the amphitheater area or the weight room. Obviously, at some point, the council, depending on all the financing and that, would have to look at those. I think look at that as well to see is 10 months the right number of months. If the resources were not there, then the council could potentially direct us to shift that to 6 months or 8 months or some other numbers. Or if the revenue's there and there's use, maybe 10 months isn't enough. Maybe it needs to be 11 or 12 months. So those are all things that we're looking at as everything coalesces and the project starts to come to a close, that we'll be dealing with here over the next 6 months or so. So thanks, Liz, for the interruption.
And just as a reminder, for the fiscal impact, the total project amount is $31.2 million, and that includes both the soft costs and the construction costs for the project. But we were successful in securing a few grants from local and federal levels, including a $6 million land and water grant. Supervisor Janice Hahn gave $4 million, Christina Garcia $2 million, and then we have federal dollars from former Congresswoman Roybal Allard of 1.5. The CDBG funds that we are currently using is over 3 million, and those will go to cover the soft costs. And then the general fund is at an impact of $14.6 million.
And Liz, if you just keep this up here, just to kind of touch on a few items that our finance admin services directors brought back as part of the mid-year budget at the last meeting, and then as a revenue analysis about 3 meetings ago. How are we going to fund the $14.6 million? Since this project started, the council's taken several action over the last 5 years, several versions of the council that have resulted in the general fund over the last 5 years increasing from 17 million to 35 million. We have some revenue challenges this year, but it leaves about $31 million, which happens to be exactly $14 million. So, you know, I would say that the revenue actions that the councils have taken over the last 5 years, including this council, have left the city with $14 extra million. That was, you know, theoretically always assumed to be obligated to pay for the city's general fund portion of this aquatic center. So, you know, if you look at it, you're getting a $31.2 million aquatic center for $14.6 million. The $14.6 million isn't even being borrowed. It's money that was earned and saved for by the city for the purpose of financing the pool. So by the time this project's done, the city will be in the exact same position it was from a fund balance perspective, yet we'll be the owner of a $31 million pool. So I think just to go back over the last 5 years and roll forward, you know, I think the project's gone pretty successfully. There were some slowdowns due to COVID and things of that nature, but that's what you see here in the presentation here. And here's a final thing I'd just say is just a thank you to all the work and energy that went into the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and then also from the elected officials that were willing to appropriate monies. There was a lot of work on the Land and Water Conservation Fund. It's federal funding that comes through the state. During COVID was a challenge. A lot of those offices were closed and would slow us down. You couldn't get responses from the offices as far as environmental reviews and things of that nature. And then all the work that has gone into working with the elected officials. And then even on our CDBG funds, one of the items on the consent calendar was a contract amendment with, it was for PLHA, but also our CDBG administrator. There's been a lot of work behind the scenes with our community development department and with our CDBG administrator to make sure that the funds that have been used for this project are in accordance with all the CDBG requirements and the LA County, the LACTA group that manages it for the federal government. So thank you for holding off on that, Liz.
So to continue on the fiscal impact, the project costs mirror the project budget. So our project is still within budget. So here we detail the design costs, labor compliance, construction management, and inspection. But keying in on the construction costs, we have the base contract from Bernard's, and to date, we are only at $258,000 in change orders, which is minimal for this size of a project. So all in all, we have a great team that's working on this project, keeping the costs at bay as well. So we're still within budget with $1.3 million of contingency should it be necessary between now and the next 6 months of construction. So in conclusion, staff will continue to keep the city council informed of the progress with construction. Staff will continue to seek outside funding sources to minimize the impact of the general fund. And staff are actively seeking fee-paying swim teams and clubs to help cover operating costs. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation that the city council receive and file the John Anson Ford Park Regional Aquatic Center Improvements Update Report. So with that concludes our presentation, and we will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I'll go ahead and open it up for discussion, questions, comments, points of clarification.
No questions, but I'd just like to say thank you to all the team staff, especially you, Liz and Bernie, who have been in the forefront of it. I know there's been a lot of time, energy put into this in itself, and it's going to be great for our community. It already is. So thank you guys so very much.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to just share a picture from earlier today. I went over to Ford Park and I was walking around, and I noticed there were people. Well, first of all, they had already installed the slide, and I noticed that there were people already waiting to get on the slide, and I was like, it's not open yet, and I wanted to show you guys. I don't know if you can tell. But yeah, that was my friend over there waiting to get on the slide. Straight from the pond. But yes, I want to express how happy I am about this, but I'm concerned because we need to make sure that we figure out how we're going to be programming this for many years to come, right? So it's conflicting feeling of excitement and fulfillment for myself because, as you guys know, I spent all my life working in aquatics in this particular aquatic center. But I want to make sure that we make proper use, that we do everything we can to program this pool and maximize the impact, the positive impact that we provide to our residents. So there's a long, I know it seems like we're getting close to the finish line, but in reality, I do feel like it's where the start of the real journey begins. So yeah, excited, but I know that there's a lot of work ahead of us.
I too want to thank the staff and, it's an honor to be part of the ad hoc committee and really look at the fine details of this. And just like my colleague just expressed, I know that we're really excited to have it completed, but one thing that's continuous and that we constantly talk about is operational costs, because it's one thing to have a pool, but then to make sure that we're able to have it operating, whether it be all year long or 8 months or whatnot. We really need to make sure that we're able to do that. So I appreciate you guys bringing us the numbers and being very transparent as to what this might look like so that we are able to make sure that the decisions that we make with our budget, we act accordingly to it. So thank you so much.
I want to thank staff and everyone who has worked on this project. What I really enjoyed was seeing the time lapse, seeing the vision come to life. It's just put a smile on my face. That was great. And in accordance to what my colleagues mentioned, it an important thing to consider long-term wise, right? Construction is a huge portion of it, but the operating costs are also one thing to consider. So yeah, we'll be thinking outside the box to make sure that we're able to mitigate those costs and keep it striving and serving the community for many years and generations to come. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much again, Bernie, Liz, and obviously, our city manager, Mike. You literally knocked it out of the park, and we're really excited. I had a question in regards to the federal grant, the one about the land, the grant, I think it's like the forestry management service. With everything that's going on in the federal government and with people being laid off or taking a leave and stuff, just nowadays you don't know what to expect. Are these funds, I think it's $6 million, right? Or is this guaranteed? Like, I mean, do we already have them? What's the status on that?
I'll let Liz answer.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor Chavez. Yes, we haven't received any notice of this funding being in danger. So we are currently requesting reimbursement of this grant. So the majority of the grants that we received are called reimbursable grants. So the city will front the money and then we apply for reimbursement. With the state Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, we're allowed to apply for up to 80% before the closeout of our grant. So once we're completely finished with the project, we can go back to all of our grantors and request the final funds be reimbursed. So we've received the 4 million from Janice Hahn, the 2 million from Christina, 80% of the 2 million from Christina Garcia, and we're requesting 80% from the Land and Water Fund. We just received good news back from them about our timeline. So we are not fearing or being at risk of losing this funding. And once we have word that we're getting the check of reimbursement back, I'll come back to council and let you all know so you feel comfortable knowing that the money is secure.
Thank you so much for that. And I appreciate the optimism. And I feel like we should definitely be in that direction. But at the same time, and I don't want to be the Debbie Downer or think of it negative, right? But if this funding were to be pulled, what would be the alternative to fill the $6 million void?
Yeah, right off the bat, I mean, the easy answer is there is a fund balance available. The remaining $17 million of fund balance after current revenue issues and after the pool is still 17 million. That's basically your savings for unanticipated disruptions in revenue or need for revenue. So, most likely the project is too far along to stop construction, or it would make probably no sense at that point to do that. So we'll be to do that and then look at other ways to refill the general fund, regrow the general fund back to a level that's more reasonable, considering we have a single source of revenue that's always a challenge. So that would be the most realistic. I think there are a lot of other options. You could look at city-owned properties and things like that to see if, you know, if that was something that would need to be, you know, looked at for sale or for lease or something like that.
Thank you so much. And again, just, you know, just nowadays you turn on the news and there's like a new headline every other, literally almost every other hour of what's going on in the federal government. So I'm hopeful and I want to be optimistic of or hopefully earning these $6 million. And I'm glad that this item is being brought to us, and I would ask that we continually bring it back, and we should do another one of those field trips where we get to see what the updates are. I know, and I appreciate everybody's work to publicize it. Hylas has been incredible in putting those on our social media page, and just really appreciate all that. So thank you.
So Mayor, I think if the director could give an update, we're trying to get another walkthrough scheduled and inviting other local dignitaries as well. Liz, if you want to update them on the dates we're looking at.
Yeah, we're looking at either Tuesday, April 8th or Wednesday, April 9th, at hosting a midway walkthrough for council to come out and see the progress since your last visit, but also to invite our local dignitaries and stakeholders for the pool so they can see what the community that they represent is about to have. And hopefully it'll garner some additional funds from some elected officials who haven't yet allocated funding, but we're looking at the first full week of April. So I should have confirmation on that date by early next week, and we'll send council an invitation and put it on your calendars.
Thank you so much for that. All right. Anybody else have any more points? Okay. Seeing none, can we get a motion to, I guess, receive and file?
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilwoman Guillen, second by Councilmember Barcena. I'll go ahead and do, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Objections? Abstentions, I meant. Thank you so much. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on. City water system update, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Chavez. This is the second in what kind of seems to be developed as a bit of a water theme. This is an update on the city water system and recommended next steps. And what we mean by the water system is the water that's provided to residents for the roughly 1/3 of the city that the water system's operated for by the city of Bell Gardens, as opposed to the other 2/3, which generally receive water through Golden State Water Company. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bernie Iniguez, our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Again, good evening, honorable mayor, members of the council. I'll actually go ahead and have City Engineer Douglas Benash provide the update on where we stand with the water systems. Doug.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here to give you an update on the system. A little background before we go, and Mike sort of started off with this. Basically, the city's water system serves about 1/3 of the city. We have 2 groundwater wells, well number 1, which is located at Veterans Park, and well number 3, which is up on Gage Avenue. The water system is based on the northern part of the city, with Golden State serving the southern part. And here's a map that sort of shows the area that it encompasses it. A little background. In 2020, the State Water Resources Control Board, Division of Water, Drinking Water, required all water agencies to start collect quarterly samples for chemicals known as PFAS and PFOA. These are chemicals that were developed back in the 40s, primarily through firefighting foam and the Teflon coatings in your nonstick pans. The main route of exposure of these chemicals come through ingestion. The state board established an interim response levels for these contaminants that agencies had to test for. There was no federal limits on what was determined to be an unsafe or safe level of what these contaminants are at the time. But a level was established by the state to say if you reach that level, you got to notify your customers, but that you've exceeded a level, and you had 3 choices: either turn off the well, utilize treatment or blending, or keep the well operating, but notify all the customers that it's reached this contamination level. Back in 2021, or 2021, in the fall of 2021, council, we exceeded the limits and council determined to turn the well off. Thereby incurring by turning the well off, and then the city then began to purchase Metropolitan Water District water at about 3 times the cost. And we've been doing that ever since. There's our well built, our well, it's inside that building. And we pump directly, it used to pump directly to the system. We treat it for sand and then treat it with chlorine, then it pump it directly out to the system, and it would provide water to the system overall. The EPA in March of 23 started to take this issue seriously, and then is now, as of April, have established maximum contamination levels, MCLs, which are for the PFOA, PFOS, and another 4 other items in that family. We basically now are under order by the EPA to begin treatment. In order to turn the well back on, we would have to have a treatment facility in place by 2027 in order to treat the water before it goes out to the customers. And the treatment levels are 4 parts per trillion. Now, most contaminants that we test for are in parts for millions or billions. Just for how do I describe this? A comparison, if you take our Olympic-sized pool that we're building at the aquatic center, a part per trillion is like 1 eye drop of contaminant in that water, in that volume of water of the pool. Extremely microscopic. The city back in 2016, 2017 received a grant from the state water board to develop a reservoir plan and a booster pump plan. That was under, and received an amendment for a total grant of $500,000 back in those early years. We were wrapping up that grant in July of 21 when prior to turning well off by initiating a rate study at that time. That was one of the requirements by the state in order to get the grant, to have the water system begin to pay for itself versus being subsidized by the city. Through that process in December 2022, we had gone through some explorations of the well to figure out where PFAS was, and we determined it's in the entire water column, so we got to treat the entire column of the well from that standpoint. In December 2022, we submitted an amendment to the state to help them fund the design costs, additional design costs to integrate the PFAS treatment plant with the booster station reservoir and some other overhead costs that we've incurred over the course of time with this grant application. In April of 2024, we finally got notice that they approved the grant. And at that point, we brought it back to council, where we began the process of initiating the PFAS treatment plant design for it.
And Doug, just for the council's clarification, if you go back one more slide, if you could, I just want to make sure the council understands. So the reservoir and booster station project was a project that was started prior to these PFAS issues.
Correct.
This was to just enhance the, I think, flow rates and reliability of the water system in the first place, regardless of PFAS, PFOS.
And provide a level of fire protection. Because the current system now pumps directly to the system. The reservoir would give us a volume of water that could be used for fire safety purposes.
So this was a project that was just prior to PFAS, PFOS issues. And then as that project was moving forward, I think we even had a workshop over at Ross Hall, if I remember, in 2019 that showed what the reservoir building would look like, where it would be. And then shortly after that is when the PFAS, PFOS issues really became an issue. And at that point, we basically blended the PFAS, PFOS treatment project into the reservoir and booster station project to try to get the state to help fund basically the initial project plus the design of the treatment system.
Correct.
Right? Okay. So I just want to make sure the council understands kind of two things going on. And as we move forward, we're dealing with the PFAS, PFOS treatment, and still at the same time desirous to have this reservoir and booster station project. So the idea would be to treat the water, but then also still have the same pressure and fire suppression and reliability issues that we were always trying to address in the first place. Is that right, Doug?
That is correct.
Okay. Just in case it wasn't clear, and it helps for me even to just say that out loud. Thank you, Doug.
So going back in April 2024, the fall of 2024, we came back to council to authorize the design of the PFAS treatment plant, a preparation of a new water rate study, and the preparation of a request for proposals to sell the system as an option to consider. So currently, in the sale of the water system, it takes basically a process about 2.5 to 4 years is the total overall process to sell the water system. That's basically from direct experience with staff I've worked with when they tried to sell the sativa system just here locally. So, and this has also got to go through the PUC. So we're in the process. We have an RFP almost 95% done, ready to go out to the public and to the water purveyors for that. We will obtain proposals from those prospective purchasers. We will conduct a public hearing in front of council to make a determination who is the most qualified purchaser. And we'll adopt a resolution to initiate a required voter approval citywide for that next step. And then we'll document it and send the voter approval to the PUC, which could take 2.5 to 4 years of the process. Now, based on where we're at today, the engineering recommendations that we're providing is that due to the high cost of the imported water and the state's guidelines keyed on several items for improved water quality and the economic, they include, we have to encompass the economic impacts that are to the system to initiate a Prop 218 process for the new rate study to help recover the MWD costs along with any outstanding debt, and then amortize the construction costs of the PFAS treatment plant in this new rate study is the goal of that. And then finalize the request for proposals to sell the system.
And Doug, before you move on, I think I think in some of the upcoming slides, we touch on a little bit, but the way that I see it is we're really, and we've talked about this in previous updates, I think as well. So this is why it's helpful to bring this back. We have 2 new council members that I don't believe sat on the council. Were on the council the last time we did a presentation. So there are really 2 concurrent processes going at the same time, with sub processes in between each of the 2. But process 1 being design a treatment system, figure out a way to fund and construct that system, which would generally be through increasing through Prop 218 process, increasing the rates to number 1, cover the Metropolitan Water District costs that we're currently incurring, and to over time pay back the general fund, and then 2, potentially issuing more debt or something to construct or to get funds from some other location to construct a treatment center, treatment plant system. While that is one process that's working, which if we were not considering even selling the system, that would be the process. That would really be the only responsible process to follow, generally speaking, if you're going to meet the EPA requirements and you're going to pay for them in some kind of responsible manner. The second process that doesn't have to happen, but is the process that we've been given previous direction for, that we're carrying forward, that we'll be bringing back to the council, is this item number 3, which is moving forward with a potential sale of the water system. So we're still doing everything we would normally do if there was no desire to sell the water system, so that we could recover costs from the MWD surface water costs and fix the well so that we could use it on a going forward basis. And then at the same time, putting out this RFP to sell the city's water system. And so with that, I just want to make sure that there's clarity there among the council, and especially for the new council members, that those 2 processes are running concurrently and have been running concurrently behind the scenes probably for about 12 months or so, at least including the sell part. So
correct.
Thanks, Doug.
And so where we're at, to summarize what Mike was sort of expounding on and some other things, just some of the options that are under consideration as we go through this process. Turning the well on can help mitigate the increased ongoing debt of Metropolitan Water and the annual cost. If we finalize the PFAS treatment plans and get the necessary state approvals and permits, we can move forward to construction. And then also finalize the integration of the PFAS treatment plant in with the booster station reservoir process.
Doug, before you move on that one, I think an important item that Doug's mentioning is kind of a third process from what I described that we currently aren't moving on because we don't have direction from the council, and that would be item number 1 there, which would be the well is off at essentially a direction from the council due to the PFAS levels requiring notification to the consumers of the water. That is something we haven't explicitly come back and asked the council to potentially give us direction otherwise. But Doug is mentioning here, that is an option for consideration for the council. And again, for 2 new council members that may be seeing some of this for the first time, other than as residents and engaged residents. So what would that entail? It would be turning on the water. I think Doug has mentioned that would be about a 6 to 12 month process to get the well sort of recertified, up and running again. And to look to see where has that done before. I think we've mentioned in the past, there's another neighboring city, happens to be the city of Downey. That's the approach that they took about the same time that the city of Bell Gardens took the approach of shutting off the well and providing the surface water. So what would that mean from a dollars perspective? It would mean about $1 million in savings that either wouldn't be being paid for by the general fund or that wouldn't have to be paid by the consumers of the water. If the well was turned back on and we were to bring a Prop 218 fee study to you, the cost of the MWD water wouldn't be included in there, any future water. So there could be potentially the rates might be a little bit lower up until the point that the treatment plant came up and was in running. So I just want to make sure the council understands, as of now, we are not moving with option number 1, which is turning on the well. In the meantime, we're continuing to provide the MWD water unless we were directed otherwise.
Correct. And just for comparison, the MWD water is about $1.5 million a year. Pumping groundwater is like $450,000 a year. So it's a third of what it would cost. It's a third of the cost for MWD, and that would be reflected in the rates going forward. Until that point in time, as we're going forward, the rates will be developed to recover the MWD costs until the PFAS treatment plant is constructed and operational and going back on well water. So that's kind of the process of it. And just for graphical representation, the well site on the left is being expanded to go completely to the west side of the skate park and basically come all the way out to Perry and then a little closer to Florence Place in order to fit a 1.5 million gallon reservoir and a booster station. Because of that, there's no room inside that site to put the PFAS treatment plants. That's going to go on the east side of the skate park. Basically, the gates will align. That was the previous orientation. Now it's the orientation of the vessels is being turned 90 degrees in a north-south fashion, where we have a drive-through for service trucks to service the media in the future, when they come down the alley, come into the site, and then exit out onto Florence Place.
And Doug, could you mention? So again, we're kind of talking 2 projects: the booster and the reservoir, and then separate from that, the PFAS treatment. Is there a requirement that both of those projects go together, or could the council just decide we want to pursue the PFAS treatment process, but for cost reasons or whatever, we'd want to abandon the booster and reservoir project?
Our goal is primarily pushing with the PFAS. Primarily, it's a $6 million construction project. The reservoir booster station is another $6 million. So there's $12 million of construction costs. It's our recommendation as your engineer to say, let's focus on getting the well turned back on, which means we would build just a PFAS plant and try to obtain state funding or somebody else's funding to pay for either the booster station reservoir, or if the state will pay for it all. But that's a year process out also. Once we get the design done, which will probably wrap up here in midsummer, we go with the state, we go making a construction application to the state. That takes about a year. It's midsummer. That's kind of the game plan. So that way we're moving forward to get the well turned on with the PFAS treatment plant, paid for by the ratepayers. But if we get money, then we come back and readjust the rates accordingly. That's kind of the thought process. And if we don't build the booster station, because no one wants to fund it. We just put it on the shelf and someone else can build it, or we get construction funding in the future. We will have the infrastructure in place. As they run the pipelines from the west side to the east side of the skate park for the treatment, it comes back the same way. We'll put a T and valve assembly in the return line, that if we do put the reservoir in, we just pipe it into the site and move on. So it's not like it's just paying for that cost.
And Doug, even before you move on from that, so even if, again, kind of talking about two concurrent processes going, this being one of them, the funding of the construction of the booster, well, of the PFAS treatment system first and foremost, and then possibly the booster. So if you're looking at $6 million and $6 million, and then also on the cell part, if we were to sell the water system, I think likely potential proposers would be interested in this well, and either whether it's by the time the system would sell, if that's what the council desires and the voters approve it and the CPUC approves it, they would either put in their own treatment system or they would utilize the treatment system that's already there. I would expect. Does that seem reasonable to you, that somebody buying the water system would most likely want to use this well for water production, for production of water?
Based on where we are today, I kind of viewed it as we basically have a used car that's got some dents and dings in it. We're fixing up the used car to make it more sellable, to get a higher return on our investment. So everything's going to go in the same place. Well, we can't undo, if we sell the system in the future, we aren't going to undo what we've just all done. Just because economically, if the sale never goes through, we still got to pay for the water debt that we've incurred and so forth. So no matter what happens, we got to move forward with the process accordingly.
And Doug, and that's why I bring it up for the council again, because, it seems like a lot of times you say, using your analogy, well, if I'm going to get rid of the car and sell it anyways, why would I put any money to it? It's not that simple in this case. Number one, the sale may or may not go through, even if the council is interested in it, just based on the regulatory requirements. And two, any money that you're investing into this system, or in your analogy, a used car, it's money that would generally be expected to be recovered in the sale of the system as well anyways.
Yeah, and I think that this, because of the incurred debt, that's well, we're 22 or 4 years, we're 4 million, that's $4+ million in debt just on water costs that hasn't been recovered yet. That gets exposed during the sale process to the prospective purchasers, which has an impact on what we'll ultimately get as a city if we do sell the system. So it's a numbers game, nothing more, nothing less. We're just trying to get our best foot forward, and here's what try to get the highest and best value for the system at the time that it's sold. So that's kind of where we're going. And that's basically, there'll be 4 vessels of that size, because you got to have a redundancy in the design process. In case one fails, you got to go back and have a second set of vessels in order to keep the system running. So it'll be 4 vessels, and at the same place we'll have our chlorine treatment in order to make sure the water's clean when it goes back into the system. Timeline wise, we're at 60% design right now. We'll probably get the final design here at the end of May, to 95%, and then 100% by October. The 218 fee increase, well,
can I just ask on the design completion, so does that include review by any regulatory agencies that get to review our design?
we are doing that concurrently as we speak.
Okay.
We're dealing with both the State Water Board Financial Office and the local permitting water engineering office for both the designs. The next submittal will be, we've already given the PFAS design plans. They've got comments back on that. And they've also got comments back. They've given us comments back on the operation and engineering report.
And I think the reason that I asked that too is because we've been working on the design for a while, but it isn't like it's all just internal design by our engineers. It's internal design with external review, with revisions internally, with external review again. So when you say 100%, it's actually already reviewed and we're done at that point. So
that's the intention. Okay. We knew, and that was our mindset from the beginning, to get with the state, to make sure they're on board so we don't get the last minute corrections. Oh, you can't do this. No, we want to make sure they got it. The Prop 218 process, our goal is to finalize the rates in this June, and probably bring it to a July, August public hearing after notifying the public. There'll probably be a study session with you prior to authorizing the public hearing to go forward. If we do get, if the rate study is passed, then we can start the process of implementing financing for the construction of the PFAS plant based on the rate study. And then construction beginning next spring with completion by winter 2027. If we sell, if we go with, and concurrently, we'll be doing the sale of the water system. As I mentioned before, the RFP is almost 95% complete. We'll get ready to issue it here in May. Have the proposal submit the proposals to the RFP in July. We'll spend July and September reviewing them and come back with a recommendation to council and a public hearing in September. And then we'll coordinate the local election based on the results of that public hearing and council direction between October and June 26th, because the next general election is June of 26. So just coordinate that with the countywide ballot from that standpoint. And then after June, if depending what the vote is by the city, we'll send up the PUC, and that between fall of 2027 and 2029, depending on how fast and slow they function. So as part of amendment number 2, we did get an additional $1.2 million. So we have a total grant from the state of $1.7 million to finalize the design and initiate a construction application for everything. The PFAS treatment plant, booster station, and the reservoir. And that's what we're targeting to get worked through here in the next 6 months. In conclusion, we're running down the path of getting the treatment plant finished, designed, get a rate study in place to where we can recover the cost for the construction of the PFAS over 10 years. And if the numbers are really bad based on the debt, we might want to consider making it 15 years for recovery on the amortization of the PFAS. These are options available to us as we go through the number analysis based on what we can do. And then based on that.
Doug, I think before you move off of it, I think one interesting thing for the council's consideration, the Prop 218 process is basically a fee study process. So we've got to meet regulatory requirements on how we calculate what the cost is so that, fair cost is passed on to the consumer of the water. I think as part of the Prop 218 process, we would normally, I don't think we did this last time, we didn't need to, but I think we can have an option in there that shows, here's what the recommended fee increase to pay back the MWD water that's already been purchased and to continue purchasing MWD water until a treatment plant is up and running. Or there could be an option too, which is, here's what those same fees look like if we stop purchasing MWD and use the well in between, stopping the MWD and before the treatment plant is up. And the reason I bring that up is, at that point, the council, and I'm sure you will hear feedback from the consumers of the water system, there'd be an option potentially for rates that are lower than they otherwise would be if the council, believed that it was more wise to turn the well back on and keep the rates at a lower rate. If you were overwhelmingly to hear that from the consumer, that may sway the council to say, we'd rather adopt the fee schedule and we're going to turn the well back on and submit the notifications. It would be a time for you to hear from the consumers at that time. And they'd be able to see what the cost is to receive the MWD surface water as opposed to the well water with a notification on it. So I think when that comes to the council, I think that's another time for the council to just reconsider and continue the direction that we're on now, or to potentially change course, looking at the financial implication for the consumer.
And basically, we're here our recommendations are receive and file, or if you have any other questions, we'll be more than happy to take them, or options to consider.
Thank you so much for that presentation. And thank you, City Manager, as well for chiming in. Any members of the council have any comments, questions, concerns, points of clarification?
Yeah, if you can please go back on the slides. I'm looking for a slide that had the date. I think it's that one. Give me a second. Can you go back a little bit more? More. Okay, right there. Okay, I'm sorry, I can't find the information I'm looking for.
Mark, was it the one that showed maybe amendment 1, amendment 2? It showed like April of 21, and then this one here.
It's okay, you guys can continue. If I'm able to figure it out, I'll let you know.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any comments, questions, concerns?
Yes.
Councilwoman?
So when the water well was decided to be turned off back in 2021, I think it was, you had stated, at that time, that's when we started purchasing water from MWD at 1.5, and that's yearly, correct?
Correct.
So potentially, if we were to turn back this water well on, we would have a savings because that would cost us 450,000 yearly compared to the 1.5. At this time, do we know what level contamination with the PFAS we're at? Because the water well has not been turned on. I don't know if that's been monitored.
It's probably has been, I have not, since we turned the well off, we do our normal testing on a monthly basis, but it's not a full production run. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I can get you that information.
I think Bernie we've had recent quarterly numbers that we see the PFAS. Bernie probably has
Correct.
some available
We
now.
do quarterly testing. We're required to do it for 3 contaminants of the PFAS family. And out of those 3, there's only one that's being exceeded by a couple parts per million, I believe. The PFOA is the only one. The other 2 were way lower than the limit. And it's just this one constituent, borderline that has us where we're at with the response level.
And I think it's a 10 part, is it billion or million? 10 parts per
trillion.
Okay, I'll just say 10 parts per in case I were to say it wrong. And we were at 14 for a period of time. It's come down to 12, I think, in the most recent. So if 10 is the level, we're at 12. And that number we think we've talked about potentially fluctuates depending on where the groundwater is, where the contamination sits in the groundwater. If there's a plume that's moving through, it's hard to say for sure.
The plume is here for all intents and purposes because it was in the entire water column when we did the testing, and even through the quarterly reports as it was slowly rising up. So it's here. But that's why EPA came out with the rules. We got to treat to get it down to 4 parts per trillion or less as part of the treatment train before it goes out to the public. So
I would like to request an analysis compared to our neighboring city who currently does have that contaminant. It does distribute that letter to their residents to see what levels we're at compared to them, to see if we can get some cost savings in this.
If I may, Mayor, I remember what I was trying to get at. There was a slide that talked about new guidelines, and I just wanted clarification for dealing with the PFAS levels. There was some slide that mentioned, okay, that one. So by 2027, the EPA now requires if exceeding the MCLs to complete treatment and removal. So does this mean that if we decide to open up or turn the well back on, that will take a whole year to even get it open, right? More or less.
or less.
So by that time, it'll be 2026, right? But then by 2027, we have to have a solution of how to fix the issue anyway. So it'll only be a maximum of a one year savings, or
If we keep the well off.
right, if we turn it off. Yeah.
So I think the timeline would be, let's just say for argument's sake, the council had given us direction today to reinitiate opening the well back up again. And let's just say that pushes us out till January of 26, which is approximately 9 months from now. So we'll split the difference between 6 and 12 months. January, the well would open back up again. By winter of 27, we would anticipate the treatment system is up and running. So it would still be about 2 years. I think it would be about 2 years of
$3 million
savings. Councilmember Barson, just kind of looking at the timeline, it looks like the maximum sort of savings you'd get from turning the well back on could be about 24 months, 2 years.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
Yes, I do have a question. How much would the water well sell for with a treatment plan in place? Just a ballpark number.
That's a hard.
Yeah.
We don't have a very good answer to that one. It's today. Because there's not many systems that sell to give us a comparison. Sativa had its own unique issues that had to be dealt with. We're different. We are in the process of getting an appraisal of the system in order to give us a baseline of what it's worth prior to the sale. At least we have a number in our back pocket. So we are going.
Doug, I think there might be public record. I'll say a range of a number for a system that City of Montebello had sold that was, I think it was about I think it was Montebello. It was about 1,800. It was a city in a little bit north of here. It may not have been Montebello. It was about 1,800 connections similar to ours. And I think, Bernie, if your experience in Bellflower, just from what's out there in the public realm, I seem to have a number of like 15, $18 million.
So 17 million for the Bellflower.
How much was it?
17 million.
17. Okay. So that's just a ballpark number at least. You know, I think that number could probably vary widely depending on whether you have a treatment system, whether you have, what's the flow rates of the well that you have, what are the characteristics of the connections that you have, and the condition of the water system as well. So I guess I would just preface that with maybe post-fist that after the fact, that number could vary widely. But I think just for a ballpark number, not knowing that they're apples to apples, like 15, 18 million seems like what number that we've seen.
Any more questions, comments?
Yes, this question is directed to staff. Is there any possibility of perhaps serving a poll to the residents in the or consumers in that affected area and see and kind of gauge what their perspectives are and what they think about reopening the water well?
Yeah, I mean, we can do a focus survey using a Survey Monkey tool. I think the short answer of it is yes, Mayor Pro Tem. I think the longer answer may be that, I think at the time, and maybe it's just staff's general belief is, if you think of what the questions would be is, would you effectively drink contaminated water to save $14 a month? And probably the answer is no. But we can definitely do a survey that's specific to the consumers in our water system to find out. That may not be how people feel. So that's something that I think we can design and kind of fit in as part of the current stakeholder survey that we're working on, and then depending on what the direction is on the strategic plan from the council as well, so that we don't have we have a lot of competing surveys out there, so we can merge that in. So short answer is yes. I think we can do either one that's pointed, or we can work it in with another survey.
Quick question in regards to if potentially selling the water system, who would be the residents that would vote on this? Would it be citywide, or would it only be the residents that are on the city water system?
Bernie, I'll let Bernie ask for that one.
My understanding is citywide, again, based on going through this in the Bellflower sale of the water system, it was a ballot measure that was put out for every registered voter in the city, of which 30-some thousand were allowed to vote.
So this would be the whole city of Bell Gardens, not just that.
Correct.
Okay, understood.
We can look into that further with the Public Utilities Code and with the commission as well.
Got it. Please. I'm interested in seeing that. And then as far as water contamination and looking at the 4 families of the PFAS, PFOA, I know that there's other cities that are allowing the residents to drink contaminated water. I believe back in 21, this item was brought forward to us. And I think overwhelmingly the council at the time decided to not allow our residents to drink contaminated water. And just personally, I'm interested in seeing why Downey would take that approach, and see if there's any backlash as to allowing what the notification looks like, because I think it's very specific in the communities that it's impacting or that it would cause harm to. And it just strikes me as a little bit surprising that a city like Downey would allow this.
I think from what I had an associate that I was working with primarily who did the water, who came out of Linwood, so he knew the area pretty well. I mean, some of the operators in the other areas. And what we had found out what Downey had done was that they did when it came out, they went down about the same time. They exceeded the limits about the same time we did. They did a very minimal notification to notify the residents. They either showed up on the backside of a water bill that no one reads or something. They did something that was very innocuous, but it was a public notification. Okay. Primarily because Coca-Cola bottling is in the city of Downey. And they like the water the way it is. So
I'm kind of curious. I want to ask if you could elaborate a little bit more of the Coca-Cola. I don't know what Coca-Cola has to do with.
they have a bottling plant there.
Yes, but
They use a ton of their water.
Got it. Okay, interesting.
High fructose corn syrup.
Yes, got it. I haven't drank soda within the last 15 years, so I'm not a. And right now there's something going on with Coca-Cola. Everybody's switching to Pepsi. That's what I've heard too. Anyways,
so
got it. Thank you.
That's the brief history. That's the extent of my knowledge of it. So
thank you so much for that. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
Yes, I have a question. So, I understand like your concern about why Downey did it and all that. My guess is that, well, I mean, my first concern will be, do I drink the water, right? Like if I don't drink the water, I'm probably not too concerned about the levels. Maybe we can get some information from our community about that. I know that we have a survey coming up, right? Can we ask, do you drink tap water, right? And see how many people say yes or no. I feel like that could give us a little bit of an insight. I mean, maybe it won't allow us to base an entire plan off of that, but I think it'll shed some light on if we put this on the ballot, what our residents are gonna do. Because honestly, if you're asking me, I don't drink tap water. Like I used to a long time ago, but I don't anymore. And I don't know if our community still drinks tap water. And maybe if they do, they'd want to sell it, or they wouldn't want us to turn it back on or whatnot. So staff, I guess a question for staff or also the council, could we insert that question into our survey that's coming up?
Yeah, I think Councilmember, specifically if we're interested in the residents that are and the consumers that are in our water system, we can do it, but it won't be specific necessarily to people in our water system.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not talking about just that water system, because
Just in general,
the ballot would go across the entire city, right?
Right.
So I would want to ask the entire city, even
Yeah.
if they're not on the system, because they're gonna vote on it, right? So I don't know if you guys would be interested in that, but I feel like that could give us some insight.
Can we first confirm with the PUC about whether the vote is going to be for the entire city versus qualified voters? Because that's what the code currently says. So once we confirm that, then we can determine whether we can put it on a questionnaire for the entire city.
Oh, so it's not for certain that it's only for it. We still don't know if it's for the entire city.
We're going to confirm.
Oh, okay.
And if I heard correct during your presentation, as an engineer, you're saying that you recommend for us to turn the well back on.
it's an option to consider, and it's primarily because of the increasing of debt that is occurring. It's a numbers game, more or less. And as I mentioned before, everybody gets a consumer confidence report from every water agency that you pull water from. This system is no different. Our system is no different than any other system. We have some, there's some general things that are in this that we test for, and the list is, I think, like 100 contaminants we're testing for right now. And the EPA has established maximum contamination levels for all those constituents. And most of those are in greater quantities in parts per million and parts per billion versus parts per trillion, which is, what is it, 1,000 times more than a billion? So it's so minute. They haven't figured out, and I say this from the standpoint of most of the other contaminants that are in the water, there has been medical studies that followed suit that said too much of this stuff causes X. I've not seen a study yet that PFAS does X. Okay. And I'm just being an engineer who asks questions why. Nothing more, nothing less. So you have a valid point bringing a question of that nature, which I think is appropriate. Because I personally drink tap water all the time, but that's just because I know what's in it. But everybody's different, and everybody's, so I'll do what your wishes are, no matter what happens. But I just have to present you the numbers and some facts for you guys to make an honest decision which way you want to go.
And are we currently looking for funding, if we do decide to go the route of, doing the treatment system where you said that the two entities is gonna cost 6 million each roughly? Is there any grant funding for that? Are we currently looking for funding, or where are we at with how to allocate funds for that?
We had a follow-up meeting with the state of California Thursday. And I actually brought up the situation to where most likely as part of the amendment number 2, we have the ability to prepare and submit a construction application, which is the grant funding for it. Probably focus on the PFAS treatment because that's the first thing out of the door, but that takes a year to get the process done. But the state, I think it might take a year, but they also might make the funding retroactive if we start construction sooner, because they've done that with the planning process. We initiated the design of the PFAS treatment plant prior to getting the amendment number 2 approved, but they're going to pay for it. So, yeah, we're still trying to chase money.
And also, I think just we don't have numerical dollar values, but there's some class action lawsuits as well that could potentially result in funding that could be utilized to help with the treatment system as well.
So yeah, we're trying to find out, spend other people's money as much as possible.
I had a question. I know we've focused a lot in drinking the water, but what about other things, like showering with the water and, maybe filling up aquatic center with that water?
It's what they found, the EPA says, and when they established the maximum contamination levels, it's only by ingestion. So yes, if you take a gulp of pool water, you're ingesting it.
Got it. Or maybe if you brush your teeth, right, and you rinse and right, you wash the dishes with that water, like you name it, right?
It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere soon. So,
but I think, Doug, the way the water system's set up is it's not exclusive to certain locations. If the well's on, it's going to come out of your tap and your shower and your toilet and the garden hose.
It's all the same water.
Or even with the aquatic center, I think for us to even get the well up and running would take that period of time, and then I'm assuming it wouldn't be very possible to shut off sections of the water system.
Actually, the Golden State will provide the water for the pool.
Right, we're not even in our water system for the aquatic center.
So yeah, so it will be with Golden State Water, which I think they've turned off all their wells that had PFAS in them and are importing it somehow. We're doing something or other. And I think they're in the process of building treatment plants for the wells they want to turn back on.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Well, I think we've given direction, right, as far as analysis and anything else that we want to put forward. The survey. Okay. And then hopefully do we have an idea maybe when we can hear back?
I mean, I would think as far as compared to neighboring cities, we know what our numbers are. I know Public Works has a spreadsheet that shows what the samples look like going back to 2021. I think those are public. I mean, I know they're public record. I don't know how available they are, but I'm sure we can kind of put those together. I would think we can bring them back, maybe not next meeting, but the meeting after, to at least just show what the numbers look like relative to other cities. One of the cities we've mentioned down a couple of times has multiple wells. I just notice. I think there were like 16 of them. So also, I think in addition to just one neighboring city, we would obviously, I think, take a look at the other neighboring
Commerce.
cities, and then also just like our own city outside of our water system, look at the Golden State water as well.
Golden State. And I got to preface this, when in some of our research as we're going through this process, the LA River is a barrier for whatever reason. Jurisdictions and water districts on this side of the river have more PFAS than they do on that side of the river. So it's the geology and things that happen underground due to the river.
Got it. We'll go ahead and get the Army Corps of Engineers or the supervisors to pick up the tab for that.
Actually, we did, one of the requirements to get amendment number 2 was we had to do, evaluate a consolidation analysis of water agencies a mile and a half around. And you start pulling information on where things are at, and anything across the river was way less, and it was also cost a lot more to get them back over across the river.
You mean west of the LA River?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's interesting dynamics, how things work underground.
So west would be what? Be all of the
Cudahy, Bell,
wow.
Maywood,
Okay.
Huntington Park, Southgate.
To the east, like
got
us, we're the first one. Got it. I'm curious to see, like, for example, cities that are in the middle, right? So you have like Southgate that has a portion that's on the other side.
Yeah, this side, the east side of the river will be impacted, but west side won't.
Got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Anything else? Last minute? Okay.
If you could do a motion with the direction that Councilwoman De Leon Sanchez provided. If you could repeat your motion, please.
My motion is to ask staff to do an analysis of our neighboring cities with the PFAS compared to our water, especially for the cities that are providing their residents with the contaminated water per se. And also to include the survey that Mayor Pro Tem asked for.
Perfect. Is there a second for that?
Second that motion.
All right, we have a motion, a second, a motion by Councilwoman Francis de Leon Sanchez and a second by Councilwoman Guillen. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, ayes have it. Moving on to selection of strategic plans. City manager, take it away. Oh, wait. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, it's already 8:38. Can we take a quick break, please? Any objection to that? All right, seeing none, we'll be back in about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, how about 8:45? It's 8:38, so we got 7 minutes.
Mayor, the meeting is now being streamlined.
Thank you so much for that, City Clerk. Moving on, where were we? All right, selection of strategic plan, Mr. City Manager, last item, kick it away.
Thank you, Mayor Chavez. We've got a PowerPoint presentation. I'll go through the presentation myself here. As it gets pulled up on the screen, just want to mention, thanks to Jen Pineda, Executive Assistant. She spent a lot of time and energy working on this project up till now, including the PowerPoint. So thanks to her. So strategic plan update, purpose of a strategic plan. Some of this you've heard already. It's a blueprint for the city's mission goals, along with planned projects, objectives that assure successful attainment of the mission and goals. Usually covers a multi-year period, such as 3 to 5 years. Strategic plan sets the course for the city over a multi-year period, is reevaluated and refreshed. The current method that we utilize here in the city of Bell Gardens for setting goals and objectives is not really through a multi-year strategic plan. It's through it's effectively set and monitored through the annual budget adoption, regular council meetings, bi-weekly reporting from the city manager, adopting various plans, approving resolutions, making amendments to municipal code. And I think just adding to that is also the stakeholder survey that's brought back to the council, for the purpose of looking at what the stakeholders are saying, comparing that to what you're adopting in the budget, comparing that to the direction that you're giving here at the council. So it's a de facto strategic plan that's on a more short-term basis with some long-term items such as the water system that we just spoke about. The timelines on that are obviously going out into 2027 and 2029. The components of a strategic plan, generally speaking, and some terminology is used different depending on how you put it together, but generally there's a mission statement. Shows what's the purpose of the city, a vision statement, what is the city hoping to become or achieve in the future, strategic goals and priorities, looking at the major goals the city wants to achieve and demonstrating progress towards fulfilling those mission visions. Those usually end up looking very similar to the top 5 or 6 results of the stakeholder survey. So the things that you'll see, if you look at most cities and then also compare them to the Bell Gardens results from the surveys, you see things such as, and I'll quote the ones from the city of Bell Gardens about 85% accurately. So public safety, which can include pedestrian safety, traffic safety, crime prevention, things of that nature. Housing, so whether that includes services for homelessness or rent stabilization, rent control, housing density, so housing issues. So a goal would be to have for the public to feel safe, for the public to have access to housing depending on their specific circumstances, recreational, cultural activities, fiscal stability of the organization of the city. That's come up as the top 5 before. When you look at local cities, you'll notice very similar top 5 to 6 goals and priorities. And then kind of on a hierarchy, below the goals and priorities would be your measurable objectives. So how are you going to measure? It's easy to say you want public safety. How are you going to measure that? In increased or decreased response times for calls for service, decreases in accidents where there's personal injury, things of that nature, decrease in use of force for criminal activity, things like that. So it's a hierarchy. Your mission statement's very broad. Your vision statement's still very broad. Strategic goals and priorities get a little bit more specific. And then your measurable objectives are the actual things you're going to do that will help you achieve the goals and priorities, which in turn help you achieve the mission and the vision. An example of strategic goals, priorities, I gave some of these. These are ones you'll see in many cities, including we see these as a result of our surveys. Fiscal organizational stability, economic development, land use infrastructure, health, wellness, safety, community engagement. And then some examples of some of the objectives. So if a priority is a strategic goal and priority is fiscal organizational stability, a measurable objective may include a preparation of a fiscal contingency plan. Economic development, You may have measurable objectives being changes to your zoning code for better utilization of vacant properties. That's been one we've talked about here. Land use, conducting annual in-depth maintenance of park equipment that could fit under infrastructure. So those are some examples. And then if you look to the right, the way that they're depicted oftentimes in strategic plans with near other cities near here or in the state of California and throughout the United States. Those are ones you see very regularly: fiscal stewardship, infrastructure, public safety, recreation community, visual character development, business economic vitality, community engagement. And then depending on the government organization, if it's a special district, it would look different than that. So if you're a water district and you had a strategic plan, it would be, water quality, efficiency of how the water is delivered and things of that nature. But this is very similar for cities. Strategic plan update. So for some background, at the January 13, 25 City Council meeting, staff was instructed to issue an RFP. I think at the time we estimated the cost would be between about 50 and 100,000, somewhere in that range. And the nice thing about putting an RFP out is you get an idea of what is the cost and how much interest is there, how much capacity is there for potential consultants to help develop a strategic plan. So we received 10 submissions by the proposal deadline, which was February 13th, so it was open for a month. This is a listing of the proposers here. The project costs among those proposers range from as low as 40,000 up to 158,000. Timelines varied between 4 months from start to finish to 6 months, and consultant hours to complete the project ranged from 160 hours to 649 hours. So you could tell there's pretty broad range in there. As being a reviewer of these proposals, on the higher end of it and on the lower end of it, they were probably not the most competitive based on demonstrating the understanding of what the city's looking for and would expect as the outcome. There were about 5 kind of in the middle there that were between the ranges that are shown there that seem to have the most compelling product and demonstration of product. And the firms were evaluated based on their qualifications, expertise, and cost effectiveness. All of them were qualified to provide the services. So none of them were disqualified as firms that do HVAC maintenance that just decided they want to try to do a strategic plan for the city of Bell Gardens. There were none of those, just randomly HVAC maintenance. Based on the review, and I can go through some of the specifics on there, MIG, sometimes referred to as MIG, I believe they call themselves, was determined to be the most highly qualified to deliver the scope of work that the city requires in establishing a strategic plan. And we can give some examples here of this specific firm. Actually, before I go through some of the slide here, I would just say on qualifications, what would separate this firm apart from other firms? So some of the firms only predominantly, if not 100%, do nonprofits. Some of the firms have a focus that's not so much on strategic plan, but more on financial analysis, a more narrow focus. Some of them had a cost of services that was just not reasonable for what a city of this size and what comparable cities would expect. Again, as you see some of the numbers up there, some of them had more experience in counties. Some of them had more experience in other parts of the country. So MIG on the matrix of cost effectiveness, qualifications, expertise, area of expertise, geographic location, was determined to be the most highly qualified. Some of the examples of some of the things that they've worked on, and some of the components, which are mostly all components. So facilitation of a strategic plan that included community engagement, events, goal setting workshops, where they engaged employees and stakeholders, developed the plan, and then brought the final plan to the council for approval after the process. Some local examples they've done was the Downey Forward 2030 strategic plan. So effectively, they did Downey strategic plan. They did Rosemead strategic plan, Cathedral City, which is in Riverside County out in the desert. And then you can see other areas there, that other similar type plans that they've worked on. Here's some examples. So this is the Downey Forward plan. This is just something that we took from that particular plan just to demonstrate, you know, the sort of the illustration of what you would physically see in this plan as opposed to just a spreadsheet or something like that. You know, they've got compelling information that starts off broad, and then if you go through their plan, it gets into very detailed. You can kind of see a spreadsheet down at the bottom. It's got orange and tan and dark blue. So there's an example of Downey's. This is some of the work that they did on the Rosemead strategic plan. Give you an idea of the front. It's obviously a very professional looking document, you know, that talks about the vision and mission, goals, values, and then goes into the detail. This was for Cathedral City. So some of the behind the scenes stuff is shown here in the orange with actions. Those would be objectives as we described. So if those actions or objectives are reached, then your goals and your vision and your mission and values and that you would be achieving those things. From a pricing perspective, so this is the price proposal from MIG. They were in the middle, I would say, of the middle group of the proposers, the middle 5 that seem to have the most relevant qualifications and quality of experience. They were all in the range of about 45 to 70,000. The proposal here was higher than this initially. As described in the RFP, we negotiated that price down based on a number of factors down to $59,996. So effectively $60,000. That would be for a 5-year strategic plan. So if you amortize that out over 60 months, the investment would be $1,000 a month over 5 years to have a strategic plan. So I think kind of just going back before I touch on these two options here, you know, there's not a requirement to have a strategic plan. It's not like audited financial statements or a federal single audit or a budget that's adopted. Those are legally required, you know, documents that you have to have. So a strategic plan is not legally required. Is a strategic plan generally seen as a good governance tool? Yes. You know, the purpose of the strategic plan is to help guide the organization from a big picture perspective. The cost, we didn't budget for it. Our general fund budget is $46 million currently. This is $60,000. It is a small percentage of that budget. I think the hiring a consultant to do it, it takes some of the burden off of staff that are working on all of the projects that are probably going to be discussed as part of this strategic plan, but also brings people with specific expertise when it comes to leading workshops with the council, with the management team, with residents and other stakeholders, as far as professional processes at drawing out ideas and thoughts that staff, you know, maybe not be trained in or capable of doing at the same level. So we have is option 1, option 2. Option 1 would be authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with MIG or MIG for the development of strategic plan in an amount not to exceed $59,996. The project would take approximately 4 months. They would start in about 3 to 4 weeks. And if I go back a couple slides here, you can kind of look here at the tasks, project initiation, project management, council interviews, executive team meeting, council workshop, have the community and city staff questionnaires, community workshops. From that, they start developing a draft vision, mission, strategic priorities. They do another workshop, draft goals and benchmarks. And then the strategic plan starts to get put together. They come back again, form it all up into the more professional strategic plan document with the goal of having a city council adoption. Realistically, based on all the proposals and in talking with this specific proposer, would probably be adopted in the August timeframe. 4 months being the shortest process as being described. And with that, I think I'd be happy to answer any questions on the process, the proposals, and things of that nature. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you so much for that, City Manager. I guess I have a question. I know you brought forward MIG. just to make sure that we can just get some clarification. Why MIG aside from all the other, or why is MIG being proposed? Curious about that.
Sure. So again, based on the review, MIG is not the cheapest. When it gets down to it, they're all qualified firms. They all have experience. The top five all have experience in preparing strategic plans for cities. MIG is local in Pasadena. The staff that are included in the proposal have gone to local schools in the Los Angeles area. Cities that they've worked for seem to line up from cultural perspective to the city of Bell Gardens. Other firms that would be right in the range of MIG are several of them would be out of state or would have worked with cities that are not in LA County. And so in looking at their ability, I think all the firms would be able to do most of this work. We think MIG would give a heads up on the community workshop side of things, seem to demonstrate a more specific amount of experience in workshops in Southeast LA. And so based on the cost being within 5 or 10,000 of the other top 5 proposers, based on all of them looking like they could perform the work, seeming that the product that we would get from MIG, specifically really what kind of gives them the heads up is the community workshop and community engagement part. They have demonstrated experience in Southeast LA over the other proposers.
Got it. Thank you so much. I'll open it up for conversation, discussion, points of clarification, questions.
So Mike, just to clarify, I know it's stated that a city does not need a strategic plan, right? Is it a good investment, recommendation, all those things, right? Currently, right now, we do have a method. We do have some long-term goals. We have been able to show that we can do big projects like the pool over the course of several years without a strategic plan. I asked this before and I'm going to ask it again. Seeing the cost, and I get that over the course of 5 years, it's about it's 1,000 a month, 60K total. I'm concerned because, we talk about wants and needs. Is this something that the city needs right now?
I would say it's probably a subjective question because I think you could probably ask, you could probably ask 5 different city managers that would say yes or no. It's hard for me to say we need it because we haven't had one in the time I've been here. I think we've been able to demonstrate that we can get projects done. I think I can share, I've shared with the mayor and I think I've shared with the council members, in my first 90 days here, my number one goal was to get a strategic plan to the council, get one adopted. And the purpose at that time was to try to focus the council and for the council to commit at that time on specific goals and objectives that, things such as a sales tax measure and water rate increase and funding an aquatic center and that. And, I think at that time, it was just something that was not realistic to get adopted at that time. So, I guess I'd just come back to, we don't need one. We're going to get what the council wants to get done. I think, but again, I think that's subjective. I guess it's just hard for me to say we need one, but I don't think there's anything negative to having one. And I think there are some benefits. I would share with the council if a strategic plan is adopted, part of what we would do from the staff perspective is all the agenda items that would come to the council would specify, what action or objective those agenda items are related to. And if they are items that aren't related to strategic plan, they would be noted as such as well. And presumably, if the council, it would generally be assumed or presumed that if the council adopted a strategic plan and then there's items that are brought forth to the council that aren't priorities within the strategic plan, that the council, would be less considerate of those items. So there's some benefits there, I think, from the staff perspective, in sharing with the council. Well, the council just adopted a strategic plan. This particular agenda request, we'll bring it to council, but we'll note that it's not included in the strategic plan. So there's some benefits there from the city manager staff perspective. So I guess in summary, I wouldn't say we need one. I wouldn't say, I believe that there are potential benefits to having one though as well.
Anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns, points of clarification?
I guess my concern is, and I know that it's only $60,000 and not just say just only, right? But we know that currently as a city, we're constantly looking at our finances. We just talked about the pool, how it's gonna cost for operational costs, right? I think any dollar amount right now, we need to be really intentional of how we're spending the residents' money, because at the end of the day, it's the city's money, how we're spending the money, and is it truly going to benefit us? So at this time, I'm inclined to say, is it a good idea? Yes. Is it the right time right now? I would say no. And that's what I'm trying to hear from my colleagues, but I'm not hearing from you guys. So I'm just gonna put my thoughts out there.
Thank you so much for that, Councilwoman De Leon Sanchez. Anybody else have any comments, questions, concerns? Councilman Parsons?
This is such an interesting item to discuss because, we're asking the city manager, okay, city manager, is this something we need, right? But I honestly think we're the ones that are supposed to determine whether we need it or not, right? And it's okay for any of you guys to say, yes, we need it, or no, we don't. But what are the reasons? I'm not 100% on board with this because I just don't know if this is gonna fix the shortcomings that I see. For example, right, civic engagement. We're doing excellent on social media, but are we advertising for our programs on a timely manner? I know that there was some talk about we need to start advertising for an event 3 months in advance, right? Is that being done, right? If it's not being done, something so simple, is this strategic plan gonna be the magic antidote to fix that? And I don't think it is. That's just my opinion, right? Maybe it is, and if it was a fix for all these small things that we each notice that need improvement, then that would be a clear yes for me. But I just don't know if that's the fix, right? I do think we need something. I just don't know if this is it, right? I don't know if this is the solution. I am definitely open to hearing your thoughts. I know that all of you, especially the new council members, have ideas, have opinions about how things run here. If this is gonna be a tool that's gonna effectively allow your voice to be heard through the organization and allow your goals to be implemented and make you feel like you're being productive, then I would say yes, because I've also seen in my time here, I've seen a lot of council members come and go, and a lot of them are not interested in doing constructive things in the city, and other ones maybe are just not given the opportunity. So it's a mixed bag, right? And if this is gonna be a tool that's gonna allow us to get back on track the way that we really want to and allow everyone to have a say in what the organization does for the years to come, I feel like it might be worth it, but I don't know, right? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, very true. In my opinion, there's just a lot of great projects, in the pipeline for the city of Bell Gardens, and the strategic plan is for 5 years, correct? Gotcha. So keeping in mind, the aquatic center project, as well as the water project, I think the next several periods are going to be critical, for the city's future. In my personal experience as an incoming council member, it's great. Like, I come in with such ideas, right? And but we gotta slow down and take in consideration of staff's bandwidth to place these ideas. And I think from my standpoint, in the future, I think it would be efficient for a strategic plan to place some of those ideas at least in the books. That way, at least there is an opportunity to push forward ideas, or at least bring them into the chamber and discuss them in a more formal manner. So that's the way I see this item in my point of view.
I share the sentiment. The way I look at the strategic plan is it allows us to deliberate on projects such as the long term of the pool, what projects are to come next. It allows us to sit together and discuss. I know it's, a third party that's going to be utilized. We're looking into that. And that would also take away time from staff. So we wouldn't, or I think I worded that wrongly, but it would allow us to, sit down, have a third party come in and just kind of brainstorm with our ideas and collectively come up with a plan for the betterment of our community as a whole. So that's where I'm at.
I think just a final comment. I think it would help preserve some momentum in the future and provide kind of like a rail, keep it moving forward. That's my point of view.
Thank you so
Mayor,
much.
Mayor,
Yeah, absolutely.
I have something to add if you don't mind. I just have a couple of questions. So there's a lot of things going on, right? Like the pool. We also have one of our directors leaving. In my notes here, I wrote down that they can start with this process in 3 to 4 weeks. My question is, do you think it'll affect the interactions or the data collection or the process, the fact that we're undertaking such a big project and also having this vacancy in our city? Do you think that have a negative impact?
I will say this project's going to be the project for the next 4 months. So whether we have a vacancy or don't have a vacancy, every other project that we're working on, this is priority one. So if that's what the council wants, then what council would have to understand that there has to be accommodations made. I use the example of, my coffee cup's already full of water and this is the strategic plan. There's a spill out. There isn't more coffee cup to be had. So even without a vacancy, it doesn't make the aquatic center go quicker. It doesn't mean things don't fall through the cracks less likely. It means they're more likely to, or events, or, if all of a sudden there's an immigration issue that pops up in the city. These are all probably my biggest concerns with the project, but I don't think that's always going to be an issue. So whether there's a vacancy or not doesn't alleviate that. I think it's just, it adds to the difficulty and the challenge in getting it done, but I think the challenge is there nonetheless. So I wouldn't say it doesn't make a hard process any harder or easier.
In terms of the timeline for the project, is that set in stone when we need to start and, resume the project, or can we move the window of?
No, I mean, they're realistically for scheduling of the contractor, I think it has to be somewhat set because they have other clients, I'm sure, that they're working with. And I think there's a momentum involved as well, as far as how quickly you're engaging all these stakeholders, the council, the department heads, the community, the business leaders, things like that. And if somebody were to say, well, when would the best time for this to be based on everything we're working on? It would probably be, based on the aquatic center and the operations and, financial challenges and how this budget that's upcoming looks. It's probably a year from now, based on everything in the pipeline. But to be fair, what are things going to look like a year from now? There could be an earthquake. There could be, another pandemic. So I think realistically, I would think that it's most effective to get going on it and get the project moving. But I do think just as the city manager, it's the council's decision and direction. We'll do what the council wants, obviously. But I think I would just need to make sure the council recognizes the 180 hours that the consultant takes is times all the department heads, times the staff, times the council. So, it will be the project for 3 or 4 months. Yeah.
I actually have a question about that. Because of the amount of hours, what would you say the percentage that they're gonna focus on communicating with the council is from that?
Based on I think that the council's communication, they had at least 2 5 to 6 hour workshops where they're just sitting down with you, going through things, and then multiple bringing the results of that back to the council. So I think in-person time, how much time would an individual council member be interacting with the consultant? Probably in the 12 to 20 hour range per council member, based on 2 half days and then additional follow-up. And then
Over the
number
course of
50
4 months?
Yes.
4 months.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
You just mentioned a couple of things, Mike, talking about, community getting together, all those things. So we do have, our neighborhood watch that gets together. We do have our businesses that get together. So all those things that you mentioned are already happening, right? And so the consultants or, this entity coming in to work with all these groups, I feel that's what I'm saying. We already have some of these things in place, I would really dislike to put such a burden on us as council members right now, on staff, knowing that we have so many things going on. And I know it's never the right time. I understand that. But I truly think that right now is not the appropriate time for this. Like that's just how I feel. So I'm gonna continue to vocalize that.
Going back again, what Mike said, like, when is the right time? There's not going to be a right time because events are always going to come up. For example, the pool has been a project for 6 years, right? Now our burden is to keep that pool going on, so it remains open. The programs remain open, ongoing. What are we doing to prepare for the Olympics? What are we doing to put our city out there? And I understand that we have programs already that address certain issues, conversations, but coming from the legal background, having things on paper is the best way to go in order to continue, as we said, that momentum. So, yeah.
Great. Anybody else want to make comment, questions, discussions for staff? All right. For my comments, I appreciate all the time that's already been gone into this. How long approximately has staff spent on this item already, City Manager?
Predominantly Jen Pineda and myself, but I just
It's
add up
probably
the time.
12 hours, 13 hours?
No, more than that each.
Nope.
I think the review of the proposals is probably at least 8 hours each, plus the
Okay.
RFP and then putting together the presentation and stuff. Probably specifically my time, 15 to 20, 15.
15.
And Jen probably another 15,
Yeah.
16.
So substantially, there's been quite a few days probably that have
It's been more, I've spent more specific time in the last 2 weeks on this than water system, aquatic center, use of force in the PD or anything like that. Yeah.
Use of force in the what?
Any issues with the police
Oh,
department
okay.
regarding, use of force issues, and not by our police officers, but by maybe the alleged criminals.
I want to make sure we have not heard, I don't
Using
know,
the wrong term because it's late, I think.
of all the departments.
Assaults with deadly weapons. I forget the penal code section.
We're good, Chief, right? None of that? Like the day's not over. We still got another 2.5 hours. Thank you, City Manager and everybody, with Jen, and I'm assuming Hylas probably as well has spent quite a few hours on this. I appreciate everyone's points of views and discussion and conversation. I think with any government agency and anybody who's worked in a government agency, whether that be, I think, Bernie or Hylas or Elizabeth and Chief, also yourself, City Manager, for the most part, right? And it's rare that our city doesn't have one. They always have strategic plans, right? If you look at during my time at SC doing the MPA program, I mean, that was one of the key capstone projects that we did, strategic plan. I believe, City Manager, you took it upon yourself as a CFO for South Coast Air Quality Management District to do a strategic plan. One of the concerns that's been consistently brought up is about timing, and staff directly has said, hey, at this point, and gave the illusion of the mug and overfilling and in part, that's the reason why we've decided to take this route of seeking other experts who do this for a living, right? Some of the proposals that they've done, City of Commerce next door, City of Downey next door, you name it, right? I think Santa Fe Springs did another one. What other projects nearby? They've had a quite handful of experience locally, and I think that's very vital. One of the things that I just did when I was looking at their website was they had a workshop, and it was tailored towards, and this is just based solely on the images that I was seeing. They had it was a workshop based on, I think it was a climate action plan, and they were tailoring it to seniors. And the way they managed to get the workshop going was they did like a bingo game tailored in loteria style, right? So they created their own little card of loteria, and instead of having the main characters that we're used to knowing, they put different initiatives or different ways of like recycling and being active in with green waste and whatnot as interacting with the seniors. So just food for thought. I think it's an interesting consultant service. So with that said, I'll go ahead and open it up for motions if anybody has a motion, and if not, I'll make a motion.
Motion to adopt the resolution number 2025-24, authorizing city manager to execute a professional services agreement with MIG for the development of the City of Bell Gardens strategic plan in the amount not to exceed 59,996.
I motion to receive it, file, and bring it back at a later time.
The second motion's heard first. A second for the second motion. Seeing none, we'll take the first motion.
I'll go ahead and second the first motion. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Members of the council and successor agency Barcena. Councilwoman Guillen.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sanchez.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem de la Rosa.
Yes.
And Mayor Chavez.
Yes. All right.
Motion passes forward.
Moving on, we'll go ahead and go to council member comments, starting off with Councilmember Marco Barcena.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some notes here. Give me a second. So I do have some comments in regards to the items on the agenda today. I noticed that in the past, we've had the PowerPoint presentations attached on the agenda items. I don't know if we're still doing that or if it's on a case-by-case basis, but I would appreciate having access to the PowerPoint because sometimes there's important information that I need to refer back to. I also wanted to ask if there was a reason why we didn't include the proposals that were submitted for the RFP for transparency purposes, right? And also as a reference, as a point of reference. I definitely would have appreciated being able to go back and seeing the actual proposal. I mean, your presentation was amazing. The way you compiled the information was very good.
Sorry, Councilmember, for clarification, the proposal for MIG was attached.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, it's an exhibit to the agreement. So the RFP and the
so
proposal.
it was like a.
So the agreement is an exhibit, and that exhibit has the RFP and the proposal attached.
Okay, so the proposal was at the end of the agreement.
Correct.
Okay, what about the other proposals?
So we usually do not include the other proposals, only the recommended proposal.
Only the recommended proposal.
Correct.
I've been to a few meetings. Is that something we stopped?
No, I think council member I know we oftentimes will have sort of a chart that shows kind of scoring, and I don't believe we normally include all the proposals there for a number of reasons, but they're a public record. I don't mind sharing them.
The only time we do include all of them is when staff isn't making a recommendation.
But I also just as far as the presentation goes, I feel like it's important to say, I probably will regret saying it maybe tomorrow, but there's a point where I think the amount of time that it takes to bring these things, the expectation is greater than the reality of the amount of time and energy it goes into it. So I'm operating under, let's get stuff done for the sake of getting it done, when the reality is I probably can't have it done in the right way that we would want to have it done. There's a reason the presentation isn't included until today. It's because the agenda is not out till midnight on Thursday. There's a reason that a lot of things didn't get done last week and emails aren't answered. It's because there's just a lot of things thrown out there that the expectation is to get them done now, not next meeting, not the meeting after. Doesn't matter if it's 12 weeks. Well, I've asked for it now. So I apologize for that. Generally speaking, we would like to have the presentation attached to the agenda. But getting a material agenda out with items that are regulatory in nature, that are contractual in nature, and then on top of it, addressing all of the requests, especially over the last 8 to 10 weeks, has been a significant burden from a lot of big picture items. And, what you're hearing from me is some frustration, I think, there, and acknowledging that's why the presentations aren't attached to the agenda. They won't come for another 2 weeks or another 4 weeks. We probably need a pause of a month to catch up that we're not going to get. So I apologize for that. There is a reality there that the presentation ideally would be attached to the agenda, but we're faced with doing some things that have to physically be done versus having the presentation available when the agenda, meeting the legal requirements of the agenda is difficult to meet. And then to still have a presentation done prior to the council meeting on a Monday night. So I apologize for that. That is the reason. That's the reason for it.
No, thank you. Thank you for clarifying, and no need to apologize, by the way. I just wanted to give you some feedback, because I wasn't sure what the reason was, but it makes total sense. Sometimes we're under pressure and we need to make sure that we get the important stuff on the agenda, which is totally understandable. Thank you for that explanation, Mike. Another thing that okay, so the proposals, they only come when there's no staff recommendation. Okay, got it. Thank you. And last but not least, I wanted to echo one of the comments from our residents, or at least some of our community leaders. Pastor Richard Jarman, he came by and expressed his concern with the recent news from Downey. I highly respect Mr. Jarman because he's been there for our community, providing services, and also being an advocate for social justice issues and generally just goodness, right? Some of the things that we all need in our lives. So I do have a statement. The allegations of gladiator fights at Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall are deeply disturbing, exposing a severe breach of trust by those responsible for the safety of vulnerable youth. The reported actions of those officers, facilitating and even encouraging violent encounters, highlight systemic failures within the juvenile justice system. Attorney General Rob Bonta's decision to indict 30 detention officers marks a crucial step forward towards accountability. However, this case also raises pressing questions about oversight, the culture within juvenile facilities, and the urgent need for reforms to protect detained youth from abuse. The fact that Los Padrinos remains open despite the state order to close underscores the broader crisis in LA County's juvenile detention system. Without systemic changes, including stronger safeguards against misconduct and greater transparency, such atrocities may continue. This case should serve as a wake-up call to prioritize the welfare of incarcerated youth and at-risk youth, and ensure that facilities meant for rehabilitation do not become arenas of violence and suffering. I want to encourage my colleagues to collectively put forward an effort drafting a resolution. I'm hoping I can get one of your support later, and we can work with Pastor Jarman on something to make our voice heard in our surrounding communities. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilwoman Barcena, and I agree with you. I think that I express your sentiment, and yeah, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Councilwoman Guillen.
So first of all, count me in, whatever you need for that effort, Marco. I want to thank all of you for participating in the 5K. Chief, you need to train us for next year. I want to run it next year, so you got to give us a schedule on running. And well, tonight was a long one, but thank you for all your time and efforts. I'm gonna address the elephant in the room in terms of cannabis. I'm well aware that it is a very sensitive topic for our community. Well, I had an idea as to the outcome of today's meeting. It's still disappointing. En el tema de dispensarios de marihuana, estoy al tanto que es un tema muy delicado, ya que va en contra de los valores y la moral de nuestra comunidad, en especial a los padres de familia. Y aunque yo aún no tengo la dicha de ser madre, sigo con lo que les prometí cuando estuve tocando sus puertas. Ejercer mi voto como su líder en alineación con nuestros valores y moral, los cuales estoy orgullosa de que me inculcaron mis padres. Quiero destacar que cuentan conmigo y seguiré luchando por el interés de sus familias, de nuestras familias. Y tal como uno de los seres humanos que más admiro, me dijo antes de esta junta el día de hoy, debemos ser la luz del mundo. Values are to be kept, even when inconvenient. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilwoman Guillen. Councilwoman De Leon Sanchez?
I want to thank staff, first of all, for making all these meetings happen. I know the effort that you guys put in every single day. I know firsthand, from my own experience being in the management role, how much pressure and responsibility comes with ensuring that everything runs smoothly. With that being said, I'll be honest, tonight was a little frustrating. We hear from general counsel, we hear from our engineers, we hear from our staff, what the challenges are that we're facing as a city and how we need to continue to push forward. But it's also important that we acknowledge when things aren't working, that we are transparent, that we hold each other accountable, and that we're able to communicate regardless of how we feel or where we stand in things. I think we owe that to ourselves. We owe it to our residents, to each other, to be able to lead with trust. To the staff, I just want to say that I understand the workload can get heavy, and it can be overwhelming. I do see your dedication despite the stress that it may bring. I ask you guys to please take care of yourselves, because just as important as it is to get a job done, it's more important that you continue to better your health, your mental health, your stress. I want to continue working together with my colleagues, continue working together with the staff and our residents. But I deeply do appreciate everything that you guys do, as well as my colleagues.
Thank you for that, Councilwoman De Leon Sanchez. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Mayor Pro Tem De La Rosa.
First and foremost, thank you to staff for preparing all the information that's placed on our tables and our agendas. It's very helpful to have this information, especially during these pivotal moments and times for the future of our city. So deeply from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for all the hard work. To our staff and legal team, thank you so much for everything. I think I want to thank everyone for their time in today's meeting. It was this long one, but I think it's necessary to have these meetings, and let's continue moving forward. Thank you.
Likewise, I'll share the same sentiments that all my colleagues, Mike, and I think I don't know. I feel like, I've tried we've had conversations, or we'll meet like Wednesday morning, really early, like 7 o'clock, 7:30. And, by then usually it's for the prep for the council meeting. And I want to acknowledge your leadership. And, obviously it goes to show, since your time being here, we had Director Gus Romo stay since the beginning. Right. And, it just goes to show the character, the way you carry yourself, the team that you built. And we really appreciate it. We always want you to know that you have our support no matter what. You've done a phenomenal, incredible job leading this city in the right direction. And I know that you've gotten to meet a handful of us council members along the way, right? And each with different characters and different personalities and different priorities and objectives. I think at the end of the day, we all took the same oath, right? We all represent the Bell Gardens residents. Difference to other cities is that, we're an at-large city. We don't have districts. We can't say, oh, I only represent the south side of Bell Gardens, or I represent the north side, or, we're an at-large city, right? These 39,000, right? Not including the folks that weren't counted through the census, which more than likely to probably be about 50,000 people, really. And we just appreciate the direction that you've driven the team, to our attorneys, Attorney Vasquez, Attorney McAvoy, all the work that's been done, Director Bernie, Director Liz, Chief Hylas, City Clerk, everybody here present. It's not easy. And then we got nights like today where we're going to 9:41. We did 3 hours and 41 minutes of this meeting, and just again goes to show the commitment that we each have for this community, for these residents, trying to make our city be a better city, take it to the next level, and hopefully the sun shines even brighter tomorrow. So with that said, I just want to say thank you, and looking forward to continuing the progress for our community. If there's no more questions, comments, if there's no objections, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 9:42 p.m.